All right, so I'm just going to go through this, and if you have any questions, just stop me and let me know. Um, and I know Rebecca said you guys are all pretty techy, so I'll try to be quick and general with my descriptions of the tools. So you just want to, I think my only question about the ordinances with kill are you wanting to update your current code with the ordinances that you have that are out not updated in your code, or are you wanting to do that once you're done with the restructure?
I'm going to have to go into the restructure, the redraft of the code. I'm right now moving everything from our existing code into the redraft, and then I'll have to go into the ordinances that have not been put into the current code, and then put those also in the new version. I'll just have to do it all separately. There's no way to do that I can
And
think of.
that's where I'll be helping out as well too.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that you didn't want to start doing them in this current code that you have now. So, okay. So I won't even worry about ordinances right now for the training, and we'll just go right into resolutions. So um, for resolutions, what is your main purpose with this publication? Are you wanting all the resolutions to be searchable? Or are you just wanting them to be accessible here? What's your goal with this publication?
My personally, what I would like to see is sort of what we saw in the examples before with Kimball, and that we've
Mm-hmm,
got a chronological list of all resolutions um,
mm-hmm.
updated using the software from here forward. But then, ideally, as time permits, I'd love to have old ones scanned in OCR and then backdated.
Okay. So I guess what we need to figure out together then is what formatting you would like, or what code numbering you would like to use in the resolution. So you said chronological. So for this specific example, we'll do 2020. Um, so basically to do that, so the first thing you're going to do when you start using the software is you log in. So when you come to your publication, you'll click up here, it says manage, and you'll just put in your username and password for those who haven't logged in yet. And then for the table of contents tools, you right click right on, so it says right here, right click to begin. So you have to be right on the name of the node. If you're not, if you right click somewhere else, it'll bring up your tools for your browser. The best browser to use is the Google Chrome. So if you're using Internet Explorer or Safari or something, it's not going to work as well as Chrome. So just please keep that in mind. So right clicking, if we want to add the year 2020, did you want to go like how Park City had it and go by the decade, or do you want to go just per year? I can show you lots of examples of resolutions too if you want right now.
We have a pretty high volume of resolutions, I would say,
Okay.
and so it might not be a bad idea to go decade then year.
Okay. So I think I'm gonna just go look at Park City and see how we did that. So
It'll
the
look a
parks,
little bare at first, but I think over time it will fill out and be better.
right? Okay. So Park
Does
City, I actually converted all their resolutions for them. It was a job. Go ahead.
I just had a question. The
Sure.
search function searches all of them regardless of the structure, correct?
Right. So if
Okay.
you're, so like Kimball was showing you the St. Anthony example, so what she used to be adding them in like this and just left justify everything. And then she sort of went into just adding it as a document. If you do it like this, just the words that are highlighted in blue are searchable, not the actual resolution document. But anything that you just paste everything in is searchable. Like we were talking about with your policies and procedures. Um, if we add it as an attachment, it's not searchable. So if you're wanting it to be searchable throughout, I would suggest putting it all in, pasting it all in, and then just simply formatting it like exactly how you have it here. You're just left justifying everything and keeping it simple. And then and then attaching this signed copy to it would be ideal. So let me show you like this. So if we look at this one, so everything's just to the left, even the name, and then it's got adopted by resolution. Then you click on it and it opens up the signed copy. So that's just for actually converting it. So if you are planning on maintaining resolutions, like creating them in the software in proposed mode, I don't know if you're planning on doing it in live mode or proposed mode, but then the document will just automatically link if you're doing it in proposed mode. So let's see.
Maybe
So
you could explain the difference for those of us that haven't really been in there.
right. So let's get this one added in first, and then Kimball can Kimball's going to do the proposed mode training, so I can show you once we get this one in there the difference between live mode, and then he can show you proposed mode. I think that'll be once we get some content in here.
Yeah, good idea.
So so to right click there brings up your table of contents tools. So you can add above, below, or into a name. So for this one, I'm just going to rename it because we don't want to keep the right click. So rename is self-explanatory. You just click on it and rename it. So I'm just going to name it 2020, or sorry, 2000. Is that right? I just want to copy Park City because, oh, they're going by, yeah, decades. Okay, so 2010s, and we're in the 2020s, which is crazy. Okay, so, and then I'm just gonna add below a couple more. So they're there. And then 2000s, I think, is next, right? Yes, okay. Do you want the apostrophe? Maybe we shouldn't do the apostrophe. So I'm just renaming it and deleting that apostrophe. Super
Yeah, I think you
simple.
can actually get away with the apostrophe. It's a character that's allowed. The reason why Tressa brought that up is because sometimes you'll put in characters like, and those of you who are familiar with the difference between a hyphen, an N dash, and an M dash, for example, N dashes and M dashes don't work. There are certain characters that are disallowed on the numbering or on the table of contents because those table of contents language become actual URLs. So there are actual characters that are disallowed in web URLs. So just be aware of that. That way, if you ever use certain characters, they're disallowed. And I could give you a list of those if you're curious, but sometimes we have people call us and saying, I cannot create this particular node or this level because it's just not letting me. And well, we look at it and we go, oh, well, that's because you have an M dash. Or that's because
It's funny, it lets you create it. Some now, like if you paste in a name in the table of contents and it has an apostrophe that's pasted in, it won't let you edit that section or node. So you have to go back and just retype it. So yeah, it's got to be a certain type of apostrophe, which is silly.
So for example, if I wanted the top level here or node to say 2020-2029, would that be allowed?
Yeah,
Yes.
if you just put a hyphen.
If you do a hyphen, yeah, but don't do an N dash. See, technically speaking, in a certain style manuals, they say that when you're putting a distance between 2 years, for example, you would use an N dash, not a hyphen. But in this case, because an N dash is not used or allowed for a URL, you'd have to use a hyphen.
Is that how you're wanting it, Kel?
Yes, please.
Okay. Yep. I like that better too. Do you want it like without the space or?
I have no preference on it. I don't know if anyone else does anything.
Mm-hmm. Whatever you do, just be consistent.
The spacing, I think, helps.
I like it too. Okay. So one example, so let's say that I accidentally added above and there's a name right there and I was trying to add below because I don't need to add something there. So I'm still going to name my item. So I didn't realize until after. So let me show you how to fix that. So let's name it
1990.
1999. Oh, 90, yeah. So I accidentally put it there and I realized later. So the way to fix that is you can drag these around and move them anywhere you want. So um, I don't know if you know this, Kel, but this might be helpful when you're restructuring in the sandbox too. So you just click on it and drag it, and you can put it anywhere. So you can put it underneath or above. See the little gray line, or you can put it into the node. So if you see the little plus sign, that means into. So if I drop it there, it's going to go right into that one. But I want to add it below there. So I'm going to make sure I see that gray line and then drop it there. So now it's in order. So if you make a mistake, it's easily fixed. You can easily fix it by renaming or just dragging it somewhere. So, and then I'm going to continue on with these tools. So there's edit content tool. I actually don't necessarily use this one. I always use this edit over here. Have you used this one, Kel, when you're editing?
Yes, I've used every one of those so far.
Okay. So yeah, these are the same function, edit and edit content. And then rename, I showed you that one. You just click on it and it allows you to rename that name, that node. Unpublish, I think you may have talked about this one a little bit already, where you can hide things. So like in your other publication, the policy and procedures, I hid the preface because you guys didn't want one quite yet. So it's red. So that means that it's hidden from the public view. So if I were to look at this in logged out state, it wouldn't show. So see how that's hidden there. So if you're the biggest purpose of the unpublished to me is if you're adding new content, let's say like you're working on a resolutions, but you're not completely done with it, you don't want it to show to the public view quite yet. That would be an example of using unpublished where you're hiding your work until you're ready to make it live. So it's the same idea here with the book. So see how this one's internal and this one's public. So you can right click and publish to public so that people can see it once you have the content ready to go in the resolution. So it's internal for now because there was nothing there. So you can either, oh, go ahead.
I might be getting ahead of you here, but if there's a situation where we repeal an ordinance or something like that, would you suggest using the unpublished feature to show that it's no longer available to the public, but prevent someone in the future from creating a new provision under that same section?
I think that would be fine if you were wanting to do that, or you could put repealed by the ordinance or, you know, as history there. But if you wanted it to still be searchable so that if somebody was creating a new ordinance document, they could still view that content, then yeah.
Okay, I just didn't know if it's best to, oh, sorry, what was it?
The unpublished feature is really, you use it however you want. We've seen people use it for, like, if they're handling one person to another, they don't, like, let's say we've seen one attorney says, I'm just gonna go ahead and unpublish everything before it's actually published. So they can just look at my work, and if they like it, they can publish it. I mean, you can use the unpublished really for whatever you want. Just know that unpublished basically means that it's hiding whatever's there from the public. But those who have username and password access can see it and make it publish again or public again if they so choose.
So given the way that the history works, it might actually be smarter to just have the section remain there and have no content, just say repealed, and then have a reference to the ordinance that repealed it.
Right. But the ordinance document isn't searchable itself. So if you wanted the content to stay searchable, that would be ideal, to just unpublish it. And you could even make a note in the table of contents that says this has been repealed or something, don't delete, keeping for historical purposes or something. So I think, yeah, there's no wrong way to do anything in here, I think. So whatever you want to use it for. An example of another unpublished scenario that I did is, like, we had a municipality that was changing their mind a lot on whether they wanted to have their zoning in a separate publication or not. So they finally decided to do it, but I didn't want to delete the work that we had done in their municipal code. So I just unpublished that temporarily until they were for sure, until they decided for sure, and then I deleted the content later. So I didn't just go delete it all right away because it was a lot of work. So that would be another reason. And then, so to unpublish, you just click on it and it asks you, are you sure you want to unpublish this and all its descendants? So that means if there's anything inside of that, inside of there, it'll also be unpublished if you do it from that level, from that parent level. So it turns red, and then to publish it back, you just right click and click on publish. And it asks you, are you sure? And I always just say, okay. And then the next item is delete. So I try to avoid using delete because it takes a minute to load because the software thinks there's something over here in the content, but it's it just takes a minute, about a minute. So if you delete something, don't expect it. Just let it load, just let it do its thing, and then once it's done, then you can move forward. I try to use rename rather than delete and move things around because I find that just to be faster. So have you noticed that, Kel, when you've been working, that delete takes a minute?
There's a slight delay, but it's not been too bad. I've been deleting things here and there. It's not, I've never found it to be that bad.
Okay, good, awesome. And then history. So this documentation button, I'm going to discuss that later. The change log is, there's not going to be a whole lot of change log on, oh, I guess there is because I moved this one a lot. So it'll show who did what and when. So in live mode, it doesn't show exactly what was done. So if I edited that section or node, it doesn't show the exact changes, but it will show who did it. So all of you will have your own user and it'll show. So if you have any questions on something that was completed or changed, you might want to refer to the change log to see who did it. And then the very last one, generate PDF. So this is a really cool option. I'm going to show you actually in your municipal code book because there's nothing here about the generate PDF option. So we have two, in live mode, we have two PDF generators. So we have the book generated PDF up here, and then we have a node generated PDF. So the difference is this one obviously is going to generate a PDF of your entire content that's in this publication. But if you wanted to generate a PDF of just like one, you could go down to the section. So one section or one chapter, you just right click on generate PDF. And I like to pick font size 12 because it's pretty big, but there's 3 choices. So when and then you have exclude page numbers if you would like. So a scenario where I would use exclude page numbers is, for example, if you had someone on your council who was wanting a paper copy of your code and you knew there was going to be some changes coming up, I would exclude page numbers on the whole book code so that when if you wanted, you can come create just a node generated PDF that doesn't have page numbers. So you can just fit it right in there instead of having to reprint the whole thing. Because the page numbers will be off if you don't exclude them. So, Kimball, do you have another example of using?
Yeah, I do.
page numbers?
So, for example, if I wanted to have a book that I upkeep in a loose leaf manner myself. Now, remind me, where was West Allis before this? Was West Allis using Unicode's traditional codification
No.
service? You were not?
Mm-mm.
Okay, what were they using, Tressa? Do you remember?
General code.
General code, okay.
General code, yeah.
So I would imagine that General Code gave you supplements to put into your code book. Did they do that? Like printed publications?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so removing the page numbers is really helpful because then you can just put like, let's say you change a particular chapter you can just remove that entire chapter, print out exclusively that chapter, and not have to worry about the page numbers being messed up, because there are none in the entire book. And the way that you would organize each chapter is by virtue of a tabbed like thicker paper in between the code instead of, so that's one of the reasons why we would like to remove page numbers. So then you just make your whole code be printed out without any page numbers, and then you can go ahead and do a loose leaf supplementation that way. But the whole point of self-publishing is to eliminate the paper copy where you can help it. So it's a little bit backwards, but we did want to give people that option if they ever so chose to have a printed book. In some
That was our
states,
goal. That was our goal to get rid of paper copies.
okay,
Awesome.
some states actually do, and some clerks like are dead set on having physical copies, and so that's an important element to some clerks.
Yeah, we will
Those
not
clerks
have
are
any
full
paper
of
copies.
Okay.
So
Good.
Kale, when you're done with your sandbox publication, what we're gonna do is we're gonna switch it, have our development team just switch that book with the municipal code. So you'll have this one as history, probably just internal, right?
Great.
And
That'd
then
be great.
and then I don't know if you're wanting to readopt your entire new numbering and stuff, but if you do choose to do that, then that would be an example of just creating a PDF of the whole entire code, and then you can attach that as an exhibit to your adopting ordinance.
That
So
would likely be how I do it, yes.
yeah, so I would probably want to include page numbers on that one, just because, but so you have that option.
We can do that just because it's going to be a historical document at that point.
Right. Yep. Exactly. So when we're talking about page numbers, we're specifically talking about the actual page on the PDF. So, and then, so that was the difference there. Any questions about the table of contents tools?
I guess just to double check too, I asked Kimball this already, but there is no way to have any sort of automated entry of numbers. Everything has to be manually entered. Is that correct?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Making sure I'm just not missing anything, because that would be that would definitely
we
increase
agree.
speed. If I could create some sort of syntax
Absolutely.
for the formatting, that would
Yep.
increase the speed significantly. But if I have to manually enter it, that's why you saw in my sandbox nothing's numbered yet, because I'm still organizing.
Yeah,
That's what I would suggest, is to wait till the very end and then just
Yep.
batch mode and renumber it all at once is the
and
fastest way.
I have no doubt that you'll see that in the future. I mean, there are so many features that we would love to add to this. It's just little by little, it just gets better and better. And the true benefit is that we're really leading the pack on this entire concept of self-publishing. Nobody else is really doing this, and so what we do is, when you have ideas, please share them with us regarding how our software should be, because what we do is we literally tally them up, and whoever says, if there's 50 municipalities that are telling us we want this feature or that feature, and that happens to be the most prominent request, we follow what our users say. We don't do what we want, we do what our users want. So please continue to nominate ideas. And that's a good one. That's one actually that we've talked about with Tressa and I as well. Wouldn't it be great to just say, here's the structure that we want? Sort of like if you're familiar with using Excel, where you can create sort of this pattern, you can say 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and then you can drag that little box to the right of the cell and then move it down, and it automatically continues with that pattern. Wouldn't that be cool with this?
Yeah,
You know?
that's exactly what I think would make this very
Powerful.
easy at that point in time. And
Yeah.
especially if you could just one time lay out what the syntax is, and then it would automatically update, and then hopefully anchor a section to a certain language, and when you added something between, it would automatically generate the in-between number. That'd be just, I think, a very convenient way of doing it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I agreed.
We do have that option in the list, the ordered lists. So if you we have like a set list type. So if you ever wanted to change it, we can automatically do that. So
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I can show you that in a minute. So moving forward with resolution. So any other questions about the table of contents tools before we move forward? Okay. So I'm actually going to pull up a document real quick. So this standards, we have a cheat sheet. So if you I'll send this to you when we're done. So this is our live mode and proposed mode cheat sheet. So the purpose of using the reason why you would want to use live mode versus proposed mode is if you already have a pass and or approved signed document that, and proposed mode is for if you're wanting to actually write and create the document in the software. So for all the ordinances that you guys sent me, you'll probably just want to use live mode, and then Kale is using live mode for his changes as well. So the signed document, if you're using Word to create it, you'll want to make sure that you sign it and scan it as a PDF. PDF is the best option to add because it is easily opened by everyone can open up a PDF, and some people don't have Word. So if you're uploading a Word document, they may not be able to see it. So just make sure you're scanning as a PDF, the signed version. So that's step one. Step two in live mode is to add the documentation to the gavel. So in your policies and procedures, we did not do this because I think that was the request, but for resolutions, I would suggest doing it just so you have the signed copy attached. So we are going to click on the gavel button here up by the PDF button, and
Tressa,
you have nothing here.
Tressa, can I interrupt real quick? Are you recording this part?
Yes.
Oh, fabulous. Okay.
And then we're going to add new documentation up here. So if you are ever working in here and you don't see this, that means that you're not logged in, just so you know. So when I click on it, it brings up the modal, and I'm just going to follow the steps. So if I look at my resolution I have here, I'm just going to copy the number, and then you put the date that it was adopted or approved. So let's see. There's 2 dates, adopted as and approved. So I would do the approved date. Is that what you would do? Okay.
Yeah, yes, a resolution would not be enforceable until officially approved. So 3/6/20.
Okay. So you have to put the 0 in front of the single digit months. So, and then the full year. And then another option is to click on the calendar if it's close by. You could do that as well. And then document type, we're going to pick resolution. So you can add other documents as well. So if you have like minutes that you want to attach to the resolution or something, you could add it as other and then attach it to that. You could link it to that resolution. And then from here, you're going to upload the document from your files on your computer. So let's see. I'm just going to, don't mind my messy folders. So I have a resolution here. So I'm just going to select that one, and it's as set as a PDF. And then it takes a second to load. So if you, let's say you accidentally uploaded the Word document and you hit update, you can easily fix it. So you just click on edit and it brings it back up, and you can replace that document. Or if you had like a correction or something and you wanted to replace it, it's easy to fix. So now that I have that document in the document library, I can, there's a little piece of paper here. When I click on it, it opens up that one that I just barely attached. So I don't know if you guys have a better version of this resolution that you might, I know you guys have really nice color on your logo that you might want to add that version, so you could replace it if you want something different than this one. So now that we have that step 2 done, we have that added there, we're going to go work on step 3. So adding the content in the table of contents, and then we're going to link this document. So once we're done, I'll show you the reference there when we're done. So we already have our years in there. So let's go ahead and add, sorry, wrong one. I'm going to X out of that. Let's go ahead and add some years into here. So now that I have the decades done, I'm going to add into, let's start with 2020. Do you want to go ascending or descending here?
I'd say mirror the way it is right now. We are descending, so ultimately that would be 2021's above 2020, but there's no need to add other years, I don't think, right now, obviously.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're right. We don't need to.
But I think we'd be
So,
descending.
okay, yeah. So when I'll delete those later. So it doesn't, never mind, I'm just gonna delete it. Before I delete, I like to rename, and I didn't talk about that yet. So the reason why I rename it is because I know you're probably gonna add that number back later. So in the back end of our software, we save every name in case you want it just to store it in the back end in case somebody needs it to be restored. So and you may not be able to add that name back because we have it saved on the back end. So this is my workaround to not have to contact our development team to add it back. So I'm just gonna delete that.
And so when this happens to me where it's just sitting there, I usually just refresh the page and it goes quickly then. I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing.
So that's fine. And I figured out why it does this. So when you right click to rename and you don't do anything, then it does that. I figured it out. I was like, oh, that makes sense. So just if it loads like that, it doesn't mean anything's wrong. And I usually do that same thing. I just refresh it and it goes away.
Noted. Thanks, Tressa.
Yeah.
Good feedback.
Okay, so for this one, let's see. Do you want to name the resolutions inside of here? Do you want to add a name or like the title of the resolution, or do you just want to put the resolution number or name like that?
I don't know. Other people have opinions on, do you want the titles to be searchable really easily? Or are we going to do full text of all resolutions?
Personally, I would think just the resolution number as far as the table of contents.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah.
I would do that just to keep it simple so that you don't even really have to think when you're coming here, because you don't have to like read through and figure out what the title should be. Or
there's an overall search where you can search words and it'll pull up those particular documents, right? So we're just talking about the table of contents right now.
Yes. So, and the table of contents is also searchable. So if you wanted to search for a specific resolution, you could just do that and it pulls it up.
So wait, if we would do a readable PDF as an attachment to that resolution, that would be something that's searchable?
Just the words that you're adding are searchable, the actual link, but not the document. Right.
Okay, so that would be important then, Steve. We can't search the content of the PDF unless it's reproduced in text within the Municode software.
Mm-hmm. So ideally, if you're coming in and you're going to be converting from documents, you ideally would want to use the Word document if you have them, just for simple like conversion purposes. But so it's kind of confusing. So I'm asking you to upload the signed PDF version, but you're also, if you have the Word file, it helps. It makes it much easier to copy and paste from into the software. And I can show you why.
Just remember, we also have Legistar, so we're theoretically keeping this stuff in two different databases. So people, general public, I guess, would use Legistar to look this stuff up, and which would have the titles. This is just, we're using this to have a method of creating the resolution to have it all digitally processed.
Right.
Okay.
That's actually really tricky because we don't want you to duplicate services wherever possible. If there's no reason in giving yourself extra work if we can help it. So I don't exactly know the full process of how you do Legistar to be able to say, well, this is how you should use this. I really don't. I think what our goal is just to present to you what we would do without the assumption that you have Legistar, and then have you decide how this can be used in conjunction with Legistar. Does that make sense?
That's what we're trying to figure out. One of the things is creating the actual title and resolution number, right now we use Legistar to create our resolution numbers. So
Okay.
we're gonna have to create a workflow between Legistar and this. Like the legislative file will have to probably get created with the title in Legistar first,
Mhm.
so it automatically generates the resolution number, and then we go into here to do the actual body and then create the PDF, which gets attached into Legistar.
Oh, okay.
That's, I think, the best way
Right
to do it.
now,
So,
yeah, right now we're using Legistar. We're actually populating the body of the resolution within Legistar, and it's so funky and wonky that we want to get away from that.
got it.
So
Okay.
this is a tool to take care of that. So the only thing in Legistar is going to be the number, the title,
Mhm.
and then attachments, including
And
all the
that's-
backup.
I think that's what Kel was saying too, is that eventually you're going to move all that over to here. Right, Kel?
Ideally, yes. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not sure what kind of time it would permit, but yes, I'd love to have all the old resolutions sort of backfilled into Minicode. But that's just my preference, I guess. It depends how much that we want to continue using Legistar to do that.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay, I
and
understand.
that's maybe a future thing. I mean, this
Yep.
may be all leading up to some. We have a lot invested in Granicus right now,
Yep.
but
Yep.
I do know that Municode, you have a whole legislative management tool in addition to all this.
We do.
So that's maybe something we can look at down the road.
Well, you're talking about the meeting software.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And we could definitely have a demo on that. That might be important for you to look at, but when you're ready.
Awesome. Okay, so let's just say that we're going to be adding in old ones. This is how you would do it. So if you have a PDF, like I said, Word documents are best to copy from Word files if you have them. But since I just have the PDF here, I'm going to use this and then just know that when you use a Word document, it's going to be a little bit easier. So I need to make this document OCR searchable. So I don't know if you guys have, I'm sure you have Acrobat Pro where you can recognize text to be able to copy from the files. It shouldn't be an issue if you have the Word files, just saying.
Yeah, and it sounded like this concept of making things OCR was relatively new to you. Does that sound right to each of you?
No, I've been doing that for a long time, and I
You
think
have, okay.
since we do draft all these in Legistar, that is copyable text,
Got it.
so
Beautiful.
we should be
Okay.
fine.
Oh,
Good.
awesome. Okay. So if I copy the entire document, on a PDF, it's going to bring the footer here and the header. So I like to just copy it one page at a time on a PDF unless it's massive. I can go through and delete those footers and headers, but I'll show you what happens when I do that. So I'm going to hit edit content. And then the biggest thing when you're pasting in is that we need to have you paste as plain text, and it just sets you up for success in propose mode. Because it is HTML based code, we're putting in a clean version of wherever we're copying from, so that propose mode doesn't read ugly HTML code. So to do that, if you try to right click, it says I have a Mac, so it says Command Shift V, but on PC it's Control Shift V, and it basically strips out any type of formatting or bolding or underlining, styling, stuff like that, and pastes that plain, just like it said. So if you want to write that down, paste as plain text, Control Shift V. If you hit Control V, it will allow it. So you want to be careful and just make sure to hit Control Shift V. So now I'm going to paste in my second page. I'm actually going to hit Enter on here so that it doesn't add it into that same, so I don't have to worry about fixing that later.
And
So now it's added.
just to
Oh,
clarify
go
to
ahead.
people who are listening, what she means by plain text versus just a regular normal paste of text. We want the exact same font, and we want to have the exact same single space, left align type text.
Mhm.
You just hit Control V, it's going to copy over your Comic Sans and 1.5 spacing and stuff like that. So we don't
Mhm.
want to have all the weird, like, we want the font to be identical throughout the code. And if you just hit Control V, you're going to bring whatever your old font was over to the code, and that's going to look weird.
And mostly
Yeah.
from a Word file, it does that. In a PDF, it's just going to copy it how it is in the PDF. So just keep in mind they're going to be different, PDF versus Word. But yeah, if you do that, you'll see on a Word document, if you accidentally paste hitting Control V, it looks really bad. So yeah, just that's the biggest thing, is just being consistent, and your resolutions are really nice and left justified, so it should be super simple for you guys just to come here and add them, except for the fact that there's line breaks matching here. So before I fix anything or fix any line breaks, you can see there's a few red underlines from the Google spell check. And then I saw like a period had a space. So like right here, this is also a downside of using PDFs, is that sometimes you see typos and stuff come across. So I'm just gonna fix these before I fix any formatting, because I like to keep it in the same spot so I can compare to the document easier. So just in doing this for a long time, I knew this was supposed to be permit, but just comparing to the other document, it's permit. And then the other one is probably terms, yeah. So I'm gonna fix those. And a really easy way to, if you don't wanna like look through every single word on like finding period, a space period, an easy way to do that is to hit Control F, the find on your Chrome, and I just hit space period, and it shows me all the places that happens. So I can just fix them easy enough like that. And it happened quite a bit. So you can see why I'm suggesting the Word file, right?
Yep. That was a tricky move. I like that, Tressa. I didn't know about that. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And then let's see, there's more.
That's great. I love that it remains highlighted so you can find them.
Right.
That's nice. And that's just a browser, Chrome browser feature. Very cool.
So it also does it for colons, semicolons, and commas. So you want to check all those. And then I did see a couple words that had spacing. Let's find those.
So at the end of the day, use the Word document when you copy paste.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think there was provisions. I'm just
Now,
gonna search
one
it
thing that while she's doing these fixes, I'm just
right
going to
here.
talk a little bit more about the ragged right edge that you all see. The fact that it's creating a ragged right is a problem. It's giving me some serious anxiety that she's going to hit
Mm-hmm.
update and preserve that ragged right edge. What we want is we want the text to flow completely over to the right edge of the screen and then format everything. And so she'll show you how to do that here in a moment.
I'm not going to do that, Kimball. I
know,
promise.
I know.
Don't be anxious.
I know.
Okay, so let's see. Another one. I'm just gonna search comma.
Oh, wow.
So you can, yeah, it's super tedious and annoying.
Otherwise, you could do it in Word and then paste it in there, because
Yep.
Word might be easier to do the
Correct.
control.
Find and replace.
Control, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, good idea. Good idea. But see, if you do it from Word, if you copy from Word in the first place and bring it over, we wouldn't even be having this problem.
Right.
Because whoever typed it in Word wouldn't be doing it incorrectly anyway, unless they did start doing it incorrectly. Then yeah, you're right.
Even then, we've got autocorrect in Word to take care of this.
Yeah.
Right.
Great.
Yep. Okay, so I think it's not too bad to do that. But yeah, if you have other means of fixing, if you only have the PDF file, that would be just as good. So now that I'm done with that, I'm gonna actually show you a trick on how to fix the ragged right at the very end. So don't worry, I will fix it. So I want to show you, I am going to hit update, And I want to show you what we mean by the difference between the ragged right and having it be justified. So throughout your municipal code, everything is justified to the right and boxed like that. So you can see the difference in the formatting. It looks so much better instead of having the ragged text. So I'll show you a trick that's really cool that's easy. So the one way you could do it is just obviously hitting backspace and then space it out. But I'll show you a better way. So I'm just gonna enter, I'm just arrowing down on my keyboard and hitting enter on each and following the document. This is super basic changes, and I don't know if you want to keep that right under there, or do you want me to enter on that one? Because we don't have to match it exactly how it is here. Like if I were doing this, I would probably add a space there, but we can match it if you want. So super easy. And I'm actually going to show you all the tools when I'm done. I'm going to hit update and save our work, and then when we're completely done, I'm going to show you how to use all the tools real quick. So I'm just arrowing
So
down.
while she's fixing this, some of you might be thinking, why in the world am I having to recreate this document? This is a pain. Like someone already created it in Word. Why do I have to recreate it in the web? And it's a really good question, and actually the reason why we developed propose mode. So we'll see how advantageous propose mode can be, that eliminates the need to really duplicate or rework our input of text twice. So you only input it once and you're done.
But you can see how, as I'm moving through it, it looks big, but it doesn't take as long as you would think, because it's just a basic left justify content. So once you start doing this a lot, you'll get really good at it. Okay, now that I'm done with that, my trick in fixing this, and Kibble might not like it that I'm showing you.
It's okay.
But
Go ahead.
I love this trick. So basically there's these two tools over here that are for, they're mainly for my converters and for me as an editor. But I'm just going to show you this one right here with the two tags that says source code. So when you click on it, it brings up the source code with all the tags, see paragraph tags and stuff. I don't know if you guys know HTML, but that's what it looks like. And then when I hit, I'm just going to hit OK, and I'm not going to change anything in here. Don't touch anything. I'm just going to open it up and hit OK, and it will fix these line breaks. So the reason why I'm doing this at the very end is because if you do it at the beginning, it's going to bring everything up into one paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's removing all line breaks, but since I hit enter on every single one, it separates them into separate paragraphs, and it's going to fix just each paragraph. So I'm going to hit OK, and now it's justified. Instead of going through each line and fixing it manually, that's my trick. So
Great trick.
Thanks.
Trick, yeah.
All right, so now that that's done, we want to link the documentation that we added in the document library. So that's step number 3 on the cheat, or 4 on the cheat sheet. So
Can I ask a question real quick, Tressa? Are we going to bypass the ordered list
Yes,
feature? Okay.
because we're keeping it, we're matching how they have everything just left justified.
All right.
And then, so we're gonna, okay, one question before I do that. Do you want us to add the signatures like Park City has and St. Anthony, or are you okay leaving all this other stuff off because we're linking the document?
You can leave it off with the link document because of the link document.
Okay. I had this discussion with another municipality, and we were going back and forth, and I think we decided to keep them because if you want to know who the mayor or city clerk were at that time, then it would be searchable on there. But for now, we can just leave it off. So when I hit documentation, it brings up a modal that we're going to link that document, the signed document, to the change that we made. So you just hit add documentation, and then it brings up another one, and it'll bring up all your actions. So do you want to say adopted by or approved by, approved on?
Steve, any thoughts? I think it's meaningless distinction, but
I know.
I would say approved, I guess, is the best way to do it, unless Steve has
Okay.
an objection to it.
Can you go back to the question? I was typing an email.
Sure. So we're linking the
Resolution
document. Yeah,
So
we're
this is
looking
a-
at the oh, go ahead.
This is, for some reason, we've separated ordinances and resolutions. One was adopted, one was approved. I know I asked Kale this several months ago, but personally, I prefer resolutions and ordinances to be adopted. I don't think it
Right.
really matters. I don't think Kale really cared either way.
Yeah, adopted would mean the same thing as approved in my mind. The
Right.
fact that we make a distinction is sort of just dubious, but
Yep.
it doesn't
Me
really matter
too.
for me.
Agreed.
Yep.
I
Okay.
think the
I
previous
would-
Used,
had some reason for having it that way. I don't know.
My
always
thought
use-
is, go ahead, Richard.
we always use the acronym OPRAMA, OPRAMA. So as ordinances are passed, resolutions are adopted, motions are approved.
Oh, interesting.
Okay.
I've never heard of
I like
that.
that.
Oprah,
Neither.
huh?
Any reason for that distinction?
That's just, I guess, past practice in the city of Milwaukee.
Huh.
Yeah, I would be
Okay.
okay using adopted at all times, just
Yeah.
because it's a motion to adopt this.
Yep, I agree.
Motion to adopt ordinance, motion to adopt resolution, motion to adopt. So I'm okay using that as the nomenclature for everything, frankly. But I don't know, whatever they want to do.
In my mind, it's always been the legislation. So either policies that are adopted via resolution or ordinances that are law are always adopted. Basic motions are just kind of approved. And that would be our
Right. The
communication.
minutes are approved. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
What about
right.
the as amended? Do we
That's
need,
Amended.
That is also
That's
one of
a-
those weird distinctions that the council tends to make. We draft an ordinance, let's say, for them. If they make an amendment on the floor to that ordinance, they like to say adopted as amended, as opposed to just simply adopt.
Yeah, that's something that can be taken care of through the minutes too. So if they're adopting a final version that's been amended, the minutes should just reflect what the amendment was, and then they adopt it.
Correct. So I would not
Correct.
see a need to continue saying adopted as amended. It should just say adopted, period.
Yeah. That is confusing because there's 3 different actions in there.
I think the reason they say as amended is because the way that our council meetings work, not all the council members might be privy to what the amendments were. We start our meeting, break to our committee meetings, which they do all the work, and then they come back later that night and approve the things that were just done moments ago, earlier that evening in committee.
Right.
So there's zero time for council members who are not on those committees to know what the changes were. So if it just says adopted, they assume it's as it was published prior to the meeting. If it says adopted as amended, then they have a little bit of a cue going, oh, this is different. What's different? So I think that's why they
Yep.
do it, but I don't know for certain.
So Kale, we
makes
could
sense,
probably
though.
build that into. We could probably build into training that they should just report the resolution. What was, if there were any amendments, and then that would be the adoption. Just have that kind of flow.
Yes. I think that'd be a smarter way of presenting it on the council floor by the committee chair.
Right. So as you can tell from the beginning, just beginning a new publication, just figuring out those like specific ways that you want to do things is going to be the hardest part. After that, you just, you're just going to keep it uniform throughout and copy what's already done. So if you ever want to change this to something different, I can show you how to do that. So anything that's in the by drop down, it'll show every document that's added to the document library, and we only have one, so I'm just going to select the one that we are working on. If you want to ever add details, an example of that is something like this, like you're adding an old section number or something that you want to reference to. Or another example is like in your code book on details, you could add like a specific item that you're amending or something like that if you wanted. When I do this, I try to keep it simple and I don't add any details. So it just is more complicated and more work that you don't have to do. So and then once I hit update, it's going to automatically refresh and load that section. So now that I'm done, I have the whole resolution searchable and have the attached document. So if I click on this blue link, it'll open up that document here as well. So now that we've done all the steps, and these are the same steps that you would do in your municipal code book, in your policies and procedures, and your fee schedule if you were using live mode. So let's see. So now that we have that added, I'll show you how it's referenced. So now that we linked it to the item that we were adding, you can see the reference there now, and you can actually click on it and it opens it up from there as well. So it's double linked. And then let's see. Okay, so now that we have that done, I'm just going to run through some scenarios with the tools with you. But real quick, I want to show you how to edit that documentation. If you find that you want to change the action, you just right click and go to that documentation. So remember how I did it in the edit here. So there's documentation there. And this documentation under history is the same exact thing, but you just do it from here. So you can come here and click edit and change anything on here if you need to later. Okay, so I'm just going to run through these tools. So we have undo and redo. Those are self-explanatory. Bold, italicize, underline, and strike through. So you typically probably won't use strike through in live mode, but you may want to someday, but it's there for you if you need it. And then
Tressa, can I just interject real quick? When we talk about simplicity in your books, the moment that you start to bold, italicize, or underline something in one resolution is the moment that you're setting a precedent to start doing that in all resolutions. So be cautious about using certain formatting and thinking, oh, well, I'm just going to go ahead and make this one look really cool, but then let the remaining 99 be ugly or not cool. Okay, so just maybe create a standard when you're doing your resolutions that we're going to underline this item and we're going to bold that item, we're going to italicize this item, just so that they're consistent. Just a little helpful something to consider in the future as you're publishing.
Right, so that being said, would you want all these underlined?
What do you think the problem is with underlining words on the web?
Starts looking like a hyperlink.
There you go. Yep. So I personally discourage underlining wherever you can help it, because then there's some confusion. It actually makes people hover over it because they see that it's underlined. There are some cases, obviously, like with certain typographic styles. They say, you know, if you're going to do the name of a movie or something, or the name of a book, you would underline that. But other than that, I wouldn't underline it.
I mean, if the Shawshank Redemption makes it into one of our ordinances somehow,
I love that movie.
then I guess that's how it's going to be. I picked it because it's the only one that might actually make it in.
Right.
No, I'd be okay with no formatting on the text.
Okay. If you ever need to, like in your municipal code or something, I found a trick. So if you click on your items or put your cursor right in the front, hit shift and then put it to the end, it highlights it really quickly instead of having to be really close to. It's just a little trick. So you could even do like, you know, the whole thing like that. So just a little something there. And then any questions about those tools anymore? I think they're pretty common tools that everybody knows about. So, and then alignment tools here, I don't typically use them. Sometimes we use the centering tool to center like a title of a table, or if you wanted like to add this part of, this probably should be added at the top. I didn't do that. So I'm just going to hit enter on there and then paste this as plain text. So one thing that we can't do is have this, this isn't like Word where you can make it, align it to the right. So how would you like me to add that final action date? Or would you not want to add that at all?
I don't necessarily see the benefit to having that information in this, but
At all? Okay, we can take it off. I mean, I think, yeah, you're right. A
Yeah,
lot
I
of
would agree.
municipalities are adding it from top to bottom, so that's where I'm. Okay, so all right, if you wanted to do that, just keep in mind that you can't do anything like this in the software, so unless you space it out. But okay, so I never use full justify or left justify because everything's already left justified. So those do what they show. And then, okay, so bulleted list and ordered list buttons are the same thing. They're just showing bullets versus numbers or letters. So I'm just going to use this as an example, and I'm going to hit cancel when we're done so I don't mess up any of our changes. So if you want to add a bulleted list, you just click right in front of the item and then hit the bullet item. Sometimes if you have a paragraph above and you don't enter it down, it'll add the bullet to the paragraph above. So you just want to make sure to enter the items down before doing that. And then let's say I accidentally added bullets. You can just stay right there and then change it to ordered list easily like that. So let's say I want to add that too into the list. I just hit delete and then hit enter and it adds an item there. And then I'm just going to keep moving along with this ordered list till 6. So anything that doesn't have an item, if I hit enter on it, it's going to add an item. So to avoid that in an order list, you're going to hit shift return, which is what we call a soft return, twice, and it creates that paragraph alone. So I call it a floating paragraph, but that's just a made up term that I made up. So I'm just going to keep hitting shift enter. You have to do it twice to get it to not have an item. So now that I'm at the 3, I'm going to hit delete and hit enter. 4. So let's say this 5, I'm just going to change this to like A and B. So let's say this was A and B. So I'm just going to hit tab on my keyboard, or you can use these tools up here, increase indent, and hit that. I find tab is obviously a lot quicker. So then once you get to the B, it's just automatically going to stay in line with where you're at in your items. So let's say this was a 5 and I hit enter right here. Then I just can hit shift tab like in Word and bring it back out. So you can use these tools or your keyboard. And this is the hardest thing to learn. I think the reason why I keep the items at on each one is so I can make sure I'm following it. And just keep in mind that if you're working in like an ordinance and it's not matching your ordered list, you want to match the ordered list type that's in your code or in your publication. You don't want to match the items on the document because you're not going to be consistent throughout your code with that list type. So that being said, from here, this is when once I have them all matched up, where I know they're in the right place, if they're not matching, then I come and delete the items. And you can use your keyboard to arrow down or use your cursor. So that's how I do ordered lists. So any questions about those buttons, those tools?
So just like in Excel, you're probably used to hitting Tab and Shift Tab, you know, to move things around. You have that same opportunity here. And I believe Word, if I recall correctly, does Word do that as well? You might.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Is there like a cheat sheet that you have with all these tools on it somewhere?
There's we don't really have a cheat sheet. It's actually a really good
That's a
idea.
good
I need to
idea.
probably include it. But if you look at the help menu, there is a particular thing that talks about text tricks and tips or something. And there's a little video that with.
I'll show you the help when we're done,
Yeah,
or Kimball can.
sure.
So that's a good idea, Kimball. We could have like a graphic of each item and then have a description. Yep.
Yeah, good idea.
Okay, so moving on. Sorry, we don't have that right now. So anytime this insert edit link button is different than just like a normal hyperlink button because it has two purposes. So one is you can add a hyperlink, and the second is you can add a document link or a link to a document. So the hyperlink works exactly like, let's say we want to link to here. It works exactly like any other hyperlink app or tool that you're using in any app. So you open it up and you paste in your URL, and then it's going to highlight the text that you, it's going to display the text that you highlighted. And then you can add an ADA description here. I just would copy this and put it there again if you wanted, but you don't have to. It's suggested though. So, and then target means if you want to open it in a new window or not. I always choose new window, and it doesn't necessarily mean new window, it just opens up in a new tab. So a browser tab. So when I hit OK, it's going to highlight that text it's going to underline and link that text that I highlighted. And I can't test it when I'm in editing mode. So I'm not going to hit update because I don't want to save this work.
I want to just jump in real quick about the ADA compliant element there that you kind of bypassed. Now Tress is okay in this case, I think, to not describe that link because the link itself was not obfuscated, and obfuscated basically implies that it was clear enough to know where that was linking, but when the link is unclear, then you need to describe where it's taking the reader. So if I'm visually impaired, it can stop and say, this is a link. This will take you to the Wisconsin state statutes. Does that make sense? Wisconsin state statute. I said that wrong. Okay, so you do need to define your what are called anchor tags wherever possible, particularly when the link is obfuscated. In other words, unclear. Does that make sense, everyone?
Yeah, so for example, most of the links that I can think of are going to be to either cross-references within the code or external websites like the Wisconsin statutes or the federal code. How does it sound to the person who is using this software?
Yeah, it will literally, it's called an A name, and it will define two, whoa, wait a minute. What did you say? How will it sound to the person who's actually?
So it's reading the text along, and then it comes to a hyperlink. What does it say so that I know how to use the description?
I don't exactly know what it will say, but from my understanding is it will read the A name to the reader. So it'll just say whatever's in the description. So if it says this is a link to the federal code, it will tell them that the following in quotations is linked to that federal code. So it'll actually read whatever you've written here.
So the software is reading along and it doesn't, so you have to actually type, this is a link.
Or you can just say federal code, or, just as long as you're defining that it's I really don't know. I haven't listened to it, But
Okay.
from
Doesn't
my
it bring up a
understanding,
tooltip too, Kimball? Like you
it
can hover over it and it
I
shows.
believe on ours, I don't think it does actually, Tressa. You could go
Okay.
ahead and try it, but what it's trying to do here is it's just trying to define where to the reader or the guest of the site where they're going to go. And from my understanding, it will describe whatever you have written.
And I just want
I
to make,
should really listen to it and
yeah,
tell you what
because I
say.
just like if that description is what's used, I don't want the software to come along, recognize a hyperlink, and so it says something like, now therefore be it resolved, this is a link, and then it goes, this is a link again to the federal code section.
Correct.
I don't
I
want
hear
to
you.
say the
Oh
same thing
yeah.
twice.
Yep.
If it
Yep.
automatically uses the prefix of this is a link
That's a good
to,
question.
or this is a link describing, and then it's,
I'll try that actually. That's going to be
I'll
my
have to
homework for today.
get back to you
Question.
on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, so the other purpose in the insert link button is to add a file link. So as mentioned before, on the document library, PDFs are best, and the same for this scenario because not everybody has Word. So I'm just gonna select the only PDF I have available. You can add any file. I don't know if size really matters in the file size, but if you have any issues with that, just let us know. So when I hit OK, it's going to look the same exact as a, I don't know why one's purple and one's blue, but it doesn't matter. It's going to just look the same as it's underlined. That's a link to that document, and then it will just open up just like these ones did in a new window or in the same tab if you didn't select new tab or new window. So a reason why you would want to add a PDF file, let's say you did have a form-based code like Kimball was talking about earlier and you don't want to convert it or you don't want to pay us to convert it, then you could just add it as a document link and the text that you link is searchable so they can easily find it still, but they'll be able to see that form-based code that's referenced in your publications. Okay, so the next tool is an insert edit image tool. So it's very similar to insert link where it's just an image instead. So if I wanted to add an image right between 1 and 2, I would just click right here, insert image, and it brings up a modal and the file finder here. So let's see if I have any images available. Probably have a lot. Let's see. I think I just created a cool one yesterday. Let's see. Okay, so and then you can add an ADA description like Kimball was talking about there that describes the image the best with the best terms that you can use or that you can come up with, I guess. And what I was mentioning in earlier is that you don't have to, but it's obviously nice to do it for ADA compliance for people who need it. But the software doesn't force you to, is what I'm saying. So in the dimensions, I just keep them the same. When it says constrained proportions, that just is automatically it automatically sets the image size for you. So when I hit OK, it might come up big, and then it would go small. In some cases, it does. So the reason why, if you add an image that's a really large size and it shrinks smaller, the reason why it does that is because for the PDF generator, we have to have a restraint on size so that it will stay on the PDF when you generate it. And so that it doesn't go off the screen and it makes the text go off the screen too, the content. So I don't necessarily love how close the text is at the top here. So if I'm in an ordered list and I want to create some space, I'm going to do a soft return, shift, enter twice, and it adds that little bit of space there to match the bottom. See that? So if I accidentally hit enter on that, it's going to add an item there. So just keep that in mind. You want to do shift return for empty spaces. So I'm going to hit undo on that. So there's my awesome image. And then Okay, so next tools, subscript and superscript are not commonly used, but they're there if you need them. They just do exactly what, like if you want to add a footnote or something, you have them there. So the next tool and the last one that I'm going to teach you about is tables. So tables are, I think we talked about that already in our review meeting, but everyone wasn't there. So tables, you have to create the table in the software. We can't just copy a table from a different source and bring it in because of that HTML code. So tables, if they're not cleanly formatted in the HTML, then they're really hard. It makes it for some bugs and errors in the propose mode. So let's say I wanted to add a table, and it looks really tiny at first, but once you start adding in content, it spreads it out for you. The nice thing, I mean, one positive thing about having to create a table is you could paste in one cell at a time, so you can do that. And if there's a lot of content in one cell, and then you can do any type of formatting and styling in here if you want, but like Kimball suggested, it's not ideal to keep up and maintain that formatting, styling. So, and then you could center, justify things if you wanted to. So these tools right here, did we talk about this already? Where I think we did, right, Kel, where you add multiple.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So if you want to add multiple, oh, what did I do there? Sorry. Don't do that. So when if you want if you want to add multiple lines, you can highlight all of them, or highlight however many you have there extra, and then when you hit insert row, it doubles the amount of rows that you had there. Same with columns. And then it's the same idea for deleting, so you can highlight and delete that many rows if you want. Sometimes these tools disappear. So if they do, you have the same tools up here. And I think Kel is better at using these tools than I am. So if you have any questions on tables, I'm just kidding. So if you, the main ones I use if these tools disappear are just add rows, insert rows, and delete rows and columns. But there's also merge cells. So let's say I wanted to merge all these together. You just highlight them, go to cells, and then merge cells. So
Tressa, do you
yeah.
know if there's an advantage to labeling a row a header row under the row properties? Or what the purpose of that feature
I
is?
wonder.
I've been doing that in our zoning code, thinking there's some reasoning for it. It's actually under the row. It's under row properties.
Oh, row properties. I wonder if it fixes it.
So if you do
so
row
under
type,
advanced.
nope,
Oh,
under
okay.
row type body should say header or footer.
When you do that, does it change the styling?
It does a little bit.
Okay, so that's something you could do. And here's what I would recommend. And I was going to jump in. This is probably the one place where I would suggest that you do have a standard for your table, that your table header is like bolded or all caps or one or the other. And then I think that would be a little easier than having to go to that table header distinction. Just say, okay, everybody, when we do tables, just remember the standard is for the table header that it's bold. You know what I mean?
I can't
Or
remember
it's
if
all
I've been
caps or
manually
something.
bolding them, if I manually bold them,
Yeah.
or if I just convert them to headers and they become bolded. I can't remember which one's happening.
Yeah. When you say update, Tressa, it may behave differently.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm
go
not
ahead
going to say update
Yeah.
on this one.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's the header. Okay. Now I'm going to test it later and play with it.
Okay. But yeah, that may do
Sorry.
it. But I think it may be easier for the user, for every user, just say, hey guys, when you do a table header, just bold it. You know what I mean? It might be easier than having to go to the table header distinction. But then again, there may be some advantage though, like you say.
To be very honest with you, I'll probably be the only one creating tables.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So, and you're really good at it, so I'm not too worried about. But if anyone ever needed to, those are the basic tools that I use, and You can get fancy with it if you want to. You can also even add images in tables, but we try to encourage people not to do that. But okay, so one last thing about tables that and this is just like a preference, and I don't necessarily like the padding here, so it's like right underneath the text. So same with the image, I just hit shift return twice and it adds a little padding between the text. The only time I like the text right on top is if it's like the name of the table, then I leave it there, but otherwise I like to create that little space. So I'm gonna hit cancel on this. And then this last one, list type override, you can change the list types here, but we have a set list type. So we wanna try to avoid doing, sorry, is there paper, love it. Let's see.
So is there, with this list type, I've actually started using, I think it's the 5th one down. That's the one
Okay, yep.
that's
Yeah.
the format I've used. Is there a way to make that the default so I don't have to keep switching that?
Yes. So let me set that for you in that sandbox. So I think I have that tool as a super user, but you may not. So I'm going to hit cancel on those changes so we don't save my awesome picture. And then I'll show you, I'll set that for you real quick. So we have these tools. So this one here.
Yes, I'm trying to avoid using Roman numerals as much as I can.
Yay.
So that's the best one. It's the one that has Roman numerals the farthest out, I think.
And by the way, if any of you
I
have any
think this one
children,
has none.
if any of you have any children under 18, ask them about Roman numerals. Let me know how much they know about them. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think the problem with the second row is that I wanted parentheses as much as I could in the beginning.
Okay, got it. Okay.
So this was my balance
references.
between, this is my balance is between parentheses and fewest Roman numerals.
Okay, nice. Okay, so let's see what happened to the ones that are already set. So they should just stay that way. And then when you create a new, so let's say we wanted to create a new one here, right when I click, see how it's set right there? When I click on the order list button, it's just gonna open up like that now, from now
Perfect.
on.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so I was gonna let you guys demonstrate on how to use it, but I think since Kale's been using it a lot, I'm not too worried. And then does somebody want to share their screen and try just copy and paste and play around with it while I'm here? If you have any questions, you can ask me, or you guys good?
So this approach that Tressa is taking is actually a teaching approach that we do. I'm a little bit nervous about doing it because there's so many people today. I think maybe we can just proceed. But I do want to state that when we teach you, we do prefer to teach you what we call a model mentor approach. So we model it and then we let you experience it in context, and then we kind of watch you do it on your screen. So in the future, we may do that. If any of you have any questions in the future, is the model mentor approach. It just tends to stick a little better in your minds when we show it off and then we have you do it yourselves and then we direct you as you do it. It just sticks better. So,
We
but
can
I think
watch somebody if they have any questions later.
Yeah. So I think we just did for the sake of, because we have so many people, Tressa, we can probably skip that point today.
Okay. All right, well, that is the end of my training, and me or Kimball will send you this cheat sheet, and you can move on to propose mode.
Thank you, Tressa.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, so Tressa is going to go ahead and log off today, and I'm going to proceed with the proposal. Now, before I do that, I want to make sure that if we want to take a quick break, we can. We've been on for, 2 hours already? So we can take a quick 2 or 3 minute break, or what do you guys think? If the
we're all at home, so we're
good.
Break
Okay.
time. But that being said, you guys probably need a
Oh no,
few minutes.
I'm quite okay. I'm quite okay. I can proceed. I just wanted, if there's anybody that's like, hold the phone, let me just take off for a second and we can wait. But okay. Well, I'll go ahead and jump in then, if nobody's going to raise their voice. what I'd like to talk about when I share my screen are the following. I'd like to talk a little bit more about the help menu. That's something that Tressa said I could talk about. The prefaces, a little bit more about the screen reader element, since the question was brought up. I don't know if you guys saw my little post on the chat, but it said that the screen readers, from my understanding, does say link before stating the text of the link. So that anchor name information. So it's kind of interesting. I'll have you kind of watch that. I'm also going to talk a little bit about MuniDocs. Does anybody in this group know what MuniDocs is? You ever heard of that before or seen it? Because I want to see if there's some potential overlap for what you're wanting. Now, it's going to be a little bit confusing because you have Legistar, you have self-publishing, and then I'm going to present MuniDocs just so you can kind of see what it does. And then I think it's probably better that I present it and you figure out what you want to do instead of not presenting it at all, because I think MuniDocs could help a little bit.
Hey, Kimball?
Yeah, go ahead.
At least I probably know a little bit about it, but General Code, I think, has a very similar product. It's just another place to dump any kind of documents if you want to put
Correct.
like zoning maps or a stormwater management plan or something like that. It's just an area to put documents, right?
Yes, but it makes them keyword searchable after you put them there.
Okay.
You just place them in there and then they're searchable, which is really cool. So I do want to show that to you just briefly. The reason why I want to show is because you're so heavily focused on the resolutions and getting them out to the public. I want to let you see another method that people present resolutions to the public as well. And then of course, let's see what else. And then of course, we're going to talk about propose mode. And converting the resolutions to catch you up. Now, Tressa, if you happen to still be on, I don't know if you still are on, but one of the questions that I have for you is, did they show any interest in having us convert their resolutions for them?
No, they were going to
No.
just move forward.
They're going to do it themselves? Because he talked about, Kale talked about backdating the resolutions and loading them into the system. Kale, is that right? You wanted to actually put all your past resolutions into this book?
I think that would be a long-term project as time permits by city staff.
Okay. So
I
if
agree
you
with
guys want to
Cameron.
do that, that's fine, but just know that we can do that for you. We will charge you what we call a conversion package, $1,000 for up to 1,500 pages. And I was just curious, Tressa, if we could do that now or if it's too late for that. But at any rate,
Hey,
I think
I agree with Kale. It was more of a long-term thinking. Right
Got
now,
it.
we just want to get one and use it for
presently in the future. Okay, good. Good.
we
That's
still
what
have Legistar, so we still have all of or many of the resolutions in there as well.
Got it. Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I'm going to jump into, well, first off, we talked about this question, and I'm wondering if you guys can hear my computer or not. Can you hear that? That guy talking?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
I wanted to show you, but if you want to take a look at this link, and I can just forward this to you a little later, but I want you to read what this is doing. This is literally reading a website and how the ADA screen reader will read those links to them. But basically it says link menu, link locations, link gift cards, link careers. Okay. So,
Sounds
so
obnoxious.
yeah, but it's helpful because it says link before it. So it's the prefix word is link. That's important just to answer your question. Okay. Now the other thing that I'm going to show you is MuniDocs. The document archival tool, just wanted to briefly give you an example of that. This is, if you want to go to municode.com/documents, this will give you a kind of a brief explanation of what this does and some various success stories of people that use it. Really what you're doing here is you're uploading, it's a cache. I like to refer to it as a cache, C-A-C-H-E, a place where you can load in all of your documents and then make them keyword searchable. So for example, resolutions, Arvada, Colorado, this is how they do it. They just throw them
I actually
in.
have relatives in Nevada.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah. I've
So
been there
I'm
many
gonna,
times.
great. So I'm going to say election. Interesting. I've never been to Arvada, even though I live right next to it. So here we have the word election showing up in highlights in exclusively the minutes. If I want to say, well, I should go ahead and shoot for resolutions, turn off MISC, then it's searching the word election in exclusively the resolution documents. And so what this is doing is this is auto OCRing any PDF that we load in here, and it's finding a hit in that particular document. And for some reason, it's going really slow. I bet that's a big resolution for some reason. And then I can, of course, what? Hold on. I don't know why it's taking so long, but at any rate, this is what it's going to do, is it's going to find those words within it, and I can't seem to, let me see if this is too big or something. Oh, that's why it's too big. Okay, hold on one second. And then I can search election here and get right to the word election where it showed up. Okay, so that's how MuniDocs works. It's basically a cache of files that you can load in all your files and make them findable. I like MuniDocs for any type of document that does not have really a consistent layout. I would put in MuniDocs. For example, contracts, agreements, fees, not fee schedules, but more so budget, like end of year budget information, maybe like general plans and that sort of thing. I might want to put in here as well. Anything that's really not going to be consistent in regards to its layout, I would put here. And it's just a public facing keyword searchable Dropbox is kind of a good example, good analogy of what this is. This costs you only $350 per year, and you get up to 25 gigabytes of space here. So something you might want to consider in addition to your self-publishing software if you have anything that you want to make transparent to the public. Okay, and these levels are not, you cannot change the names of these levels. We have like a whole library of different types of levels here, but once you get into here, then you can change it, but you can't change this level. Okay, so like I say, contracts, minutes, agendas, budgets, resolutions, miscellaneous documents, and there's a big list, and you can take a look at those. But anyway, that's the MuniDoc solution. That's not part of our training today, but I did want to let you know about it, since resolutions does have some overlap with this way that Arvada is doing their resolutions. Now, note, this is not a publishing tool. It's merely a cache, a repository, okay? Now, that's where our software comes in. It's a little bit different, where it's not only a cache, but it's also a publishing tool. That's where it's unique and it separates itself from MuniDocs. If I jump into the software and I use my username and password, I have this help option. I can click on this at any time, and this will give me the ability to search my support articles. If I'm curious about pasting, okay, then I can just search paste and see what the paste information says, okay? I can also, let's say, well, I'm proposing an amendment to the code. How do I do that again? I click here, and then it gives me step-by-step instructions and also a video on that. Someone asked earlier, well, do you have like a cheat sheet on various tips and tools? Here are some tips and tools: text editor buttons, text editors, insert image and PDF options, just some little additional tips and tools. I'm trying to find, I think the text editor buttons is where we talk a lot about some of those little tricks. Let's see if there's another one that I have. I think that's where it talks about that. But anyway, you can go ahead and select that and see the shift tab to decrease, tab, so on and so forth. But the, and of course, here's a video explaining all of that. Okay, now, so that's the help option. Now what I'm going to present today is the propose mode. And let me pull that up. And what Tressa reviewed to you was the manner in which to insert a resolution that was passed, and all you're doing is you're loading that into our publishing tool, okay, for historical purposes. That's where you would follow this. I already have a signed document. Now, from my understanding, that's not going to happen much right now, but it will into the future. So this particular, I already have a signed document, steps will apply. So that's what Tressa revealed to you today. Yeah, can you guys just give me just 1 second? I got to just step out for just 1 second. Someone came to my door. Hold on one moment.
So while we're waiting here, this proposed mode is likely how we're going to be doing things for all ordinances and resolutions moving forward. So when we get this thing up and running and we start using this to draft everything, this will automatically show the changes that are made. You know how I've been asking for ordinances to show the changes from the old to the new. This will take care of that and then automatically upload the document and then make the changes easier. So this is the one where it's really more important moving forward. The live mode editing is likely going to only be happening as we add historical documents. So I guess this is the one where hopefully we can utilize most this type of actual proposed mode.
And do we have these documents, or are we getting them?
Which documents?
The ones they're showing right now. I don't know if Steve knows.
Oh, I see. Like, are they going to share these documents?
Yeah.
These sheets? Yeah, I think they're going to share these sheets with us.
Okay.
Yeah. We do have a slight, I don't know if it's a quandary or whatever, but we still have a couple ordinances that we codify. Right now it's the salary and then like land, can't think of the term right now, comprehensive land use changes and stuff like that that have to be ordinance, but those aren't codified ones. I'm not sure how to handle those with this. Cale, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, we're going to have to go in. Well, it depends. If we want to put it into our current code, which we probably should while I'm drafting the new code, we would use our live edit mode then to make the changes that were already made in the prior document and then attach the other document as a history under the old code. So we have to use live mode for all of those.
But I'm talking about those, like salaries, for instance, are currently adopted via ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
And from my understanding, you can actually adopt those via resolution. Maybe that's now the time to switch, but I don't know your opinion on that.
That would
code.
Let's see. There's something in the statutes I know on it about I thought they said a salary ordinance in the statutes, but let me double check that.
All right, I'm back. I apologize.
A lot of people end up adopting them via resolution as well. A lot of municipalities.
All right.
I think it can be by resolution, Steve. It's just a salary schedule.
Right.
Okay.
So maybe that now in the switch over there, so we don't have to worry about adopting those via ordinance. Kimball, we were just talking about some things like we have a couple ordinances that are adopted, or whatever the thing that we're adopting is via ordinance instead of, but it's not codified into the code. So right now our salary schedule is adopted via ordinance, but it's not part of the codified code.
Correct.
And then comprehensive land use amendments are, I think the statutes require that you adopt an ordinance, but again, that's not something that's part of the code.
Right.
So we're trying to figure out.
Yeah, Steve, it's 660507 is what says that by ordinance, a salary schedule can be adopted. So it does say ordinance actually in the statutes.
But could we create an ordinance and then, like we did with the fee schedule, reference a schedule and then adopt everything via resolution?
Yeah, I would hope so. I think the ordinance can create a salary schedule, and then by resolution we make changes to that schedule.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and that is a really tricky question. A lot of states do allow resolutions to affect their code, and a lot of states disallow that. I would say the minority of states allow resolutions to find their way into municipal codes. the majority of states say ordinances only affect the municipal code. Resolutions affect policies.
That's how we do it
And
too. Yep.
yeah, we in the state of Utah, it's kind of weird. They say resolutions have the ability to affect the management of municipal property. They have the ability to affect policies and procedures of municipal staff. They have the ability to affect various fees such as garbage, water, and they actually clarify which fees they can affect. And then those tend to find their way into codes. But if the municipality decides to separate their policies and procedures from their code, then that whole code book in and of itself is substantiated by resolutions. And that's what they do with our software. So it's kind of interesting to see all the different states and how they do. But that, like I say, the vast majority ordinances apply to codes, resolutions apply to resolutions, resolutions apply to policies, resolutions apply to fees. But like he said, like your attorney said, I think it's a good idea maybe initially to pass all the fees by ordinance and then amend them later by resolution. That's probably not a bad move. But at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're distinguishing the two in your available books page, like this, like say, for example, Heber has, zoning pulled apart from the municipal code, resolutions pulled apart from the municipal code. Here's another one. Marriott Slaterville has their policies and procedures extracted from their municipal code as its own book, which it really should be. And then minutes, so you think of it this way. When we talked about different kinds of publications, collective and categorical, collective publications and coded publications, if the table of content structure is unique, then it should be a separate publication. If the document that substantiates the publication is unique, then it should be its own publication. If the process by which a document is approved is unique, then it should be its own separate publication. So that's kind of our standard that we have done when we separate publications. For example, general plan. One of our, and maybe Cal, you could answer this, but one of our big questions has always been, is a general plan adopted by resolution or by ordinance?
What is a general plan?
A general plan is like a comprehensive planning.
Oh, like a zoning issue, zoning thing?
It's just like your future, your outlook, how you intend the city to be in 5 or 10 or 20 years.
For
It's the-
property?
It's
For
the
property?
comp plan we have to do.
Comp plan. Yep.
Okay, so like for land use and zoning essentially is all you're saying?
Yeah, so like
Well,
for example,
Comp
land use
plans
would be
are
zoning.
adopted via ordinance. Oh, wait. I don't know. Well, maybe Rebecca knows that.
It's an interesting question because a lot of people struggle with that one because we say, well, if you're going to adopt a whole new plan, a whole comp plan, is that going to be by ordinance or is that going to be by resolution? And people don't really know how to respond to that. So
yeah,
so
I'm sure it's within our state laws here as to whether it's adopted. Yeah, it says 7.6b, council of the city may ordinance or resolution establish an official map. I'd find it. It's in here somewhere.
Okay, so at any rate, what this is actually a good example of a city who separated their publications by virtue of a unique approach. This was by ordinance. This is questionable. Okay, this is by ordinance and notice, public notice, because anything related to the zoning that's going to affect private property owners has to have a notice in the state of Utah. And then the water and sewer district is a whole separate body. The council doesn't even manage this. This is just a separate body that manages this. So again, there's some reasons and methods behind separating publications. So just think about that in the future as you choose to separate them. We've even.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say the comprehensive plan says by a single resolution, for what it's worth.
Oh, great. Okay, by single resolution. That's good to hear. That's actually, you're probably the first person to tell us because I've always wondered.
At least in Wisconsin.
Yeah, okay. So here's another example of a city who has their personnel manual, i.e. policies and procedures. And some people say, well, there's a distinct difference between those two. And there could be, just depending on the city, okay? And then construction and design standards, and then cemetery standards. So you see how there's different books for different items. And then, of course, we have Centerville, which has separated their This is kind of an interesting route. So they've had their municipal code, and they have Title 12 as their zoning. You'll notice there's not a drop-down arrow here on 12 because all of their chapters and sections within zoning are actually linked from the municipal code. So I can go here to their zoning book, and I can see Title 12, Chapter 10, Title 12, Chapter 11, so on and so forth. And now they've literally separated the zoning from the municipal code, because when you walk into their actual building, you see a municipal services sign, and then you see a zoning services sign or land use sign, and they're physically separated. So we have different folks managing this than we do this. So that's why they would separate those two. So it's just kind of an interesting way to see how different cities do different things. All right, so without further ado, let's not get too carried away, and let me just jump right into the policies, sorry, not your policies. Well, maybe I should do a policy. I do want to show resolutions a little bit, since you're using the resolutions as your publisher for the resolutions document. I'm going to jump into that a little bit, and let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and use your West Allis interface. And let me just sign out of some of these so we don't get confused. Okay, so, oops, I'm on the wrong one. We'll use this one. Okay, I'm logged in here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and make the resolutions. Well, maybe you don't want me to make the resolutions public just yet. Have you already linked this to your code on your website? Does your website actually have this linked, this particular interface linked already?
It's not linked
No,
to.
not yet.
Okay,
Oh,
good. So I'm going to go ahead and do that then. I'm going to make this one public just for today, and I can turn it off in a second. Okay. So let's suppose that I want to draft a live, okay, well, not a live resolution, but I'm going to propose a resolution, okay? So Tress has already set up some structure for us by decade. And of course, you guys can define how you want it, but I'm just going to use this as our example today. Let's suppose that I'm going to do R-2020-0136 is the next resolution, okay? So I'm going to move from live mode to propose mode. And as you can see, the live mode is red bar. I'm going to make it be a green bar. So I'm going to add a new proposal. And I'm going to go ahead and say, this is Kimball's new resolution. Kimball's resolution regarding bubblegum on the streets. Okay. Now you'll notice that I put my name in this proposal, so I can signify to other users that I'm the one responsible for this proposal. Okay. And if another user logs into the software and they get into the live mode, they can drop down. They can see, oh, it looks like Kimball's working on a proposal. Well, I'm not working on that one. My name's Beth, and I'm going to be working on Beth's resolution regarding stormwater drainage. Okay. And so now we have Beth and Kimball working on various proposals. And this, of course, will stack up over time, and you'll have multiple people working on various proposals throughout the publication. Now, you'll have this same tool in whichever publication you have. Now, what's tricky about this is that it works in exactly the same way as it would in an ordinance as it does in municipal resolutions, which means that your structure here is not coded, it's chronological, right? So you're going to be adopting within various parts a chronological, a number, a catch line, if you will, that's going to be chronological. So it's just a little different than a coded publication. But the coded, this was originally built for ordinances, and then later we were like, wait a minute, we can use this for the resolutions book as well. And that's exactly what we did. So we'll show you some of those things. Just make sure I'm not. Okay, so now that we've created our proposals, and I've got my resolution regarding bubblegum on the streets, and then Beth's resolution regarding the stormwater drainage, I'm going to go ahead and do my bubblegum resolution. And I'm going to say right click, add below, just like as if I were in live mode. Okay. It's going to work exactly the same way. And I'm going to call this one R-2020-0136, meaning that the subsequent resolution. That's probably the 136th resolution ever created in the municipality is what I'm assuming that numbering is. And how do you exactly name your resolutions, just out of curiosity? Is this the proper naming that you're using right now? Are you doing it like this?
So they're
R-year dash?
Yes,
Okay.
it would be based on years. So this would be the 136th resolution of 2020.
Okay, got it. So hopefully you never do that many resolutions in a year, but you never know.
Oh, we do many more.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say, now there's a few different ways to do this, and I'm going to show you one way without the whereas, and I'm going to show you one way with the whereas, okay? So we're going to do this one with the whereas. I'm going to say, whereas bubblegum is sticky, whereas bubblegum is ugly when large amounts are thrown onto or stuck to a surface. How's that? Stuck to a surface. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so whatever you want to actually pass, okay, we're just literally putting the whereas statements right in the substantive language area, okay? And you could copy and paste from Word into here, or you can just type it right in here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and say update. So this is a proposal that includes the word whereas, and then I'm going to do another one here in a second that has the whereas in our document creator. But for now, I'm just going to show you how this one works. First, once I think that's good, I like what I see, then I'm going to go ahead and click on representatives. And what this is doing is this is helping me create my document. So these are the steps to create my resolution document. 1, 2, 3. Make sure that my representatives are loaded. And the legislators of West Allis, who would those be? Who are the council members? Someone want to rattle those off to me?
You have to list off all 10 of them?
No, let's just do 3 of them for now.
I'd do Council A, Council B, Council C. We're not going to keep
Okay.
this, I'm assuming. So
No, you can go ahead and, okay, so let's say that Council D was no longer elected, so you just trash him because he's no longer in.
So
Okay.
these are all the people who would be voting on it, or the people who are sponsoring this legislation?
These are good question. These are the legislators who would vote.
Okay, so you
Great
need to
question.
list all 10 every time then.
Yes. Now note when you say every time, watch when I hit save. If I click representatives again, they're going to be loaded in there. So just make sure that when you get to this, you just make sure that these are current legislators that vote. Okay.
If you would, good.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, but every time you create a new proposed ordinance, you have to re-enter all 10 names?
No.
Okay.
No, and I'll show you how these are preserved in the next ordinance, or next resolution that we create. So that's literally saves it book wide or site wide. Okay?
Perfect. That's good.
Yes. So be aware though, like if you think, oh well, this person's not a voting member, and you or it was a tie vote and therefore our mayor doesn't vote, and you trash that, that's happening site wide. That's why we make it always be a step that you just double check before you proceed. You go, oh, they forgot to put Council C or Mayor C or whatever. And I don't know how you actually do this. Is your mayor voting member always, or only on a case of a tie, or how does that work?
Only on ties.
Only on ties. So be aware of that, everybody, that don't just bypass number 1 thinking that all is well once you load in all this information. Okay, so approvals, these are the people who actually sign the document. Now, that would likely be the mayor and the attester, which is our clerk for today. And I'm going to need we're going to go ahead and assign the presiding officer first. And let's say that your mayor's name is Mark Smith, and he's the mayor. And let's see, I'm going to do this one for today. I'm going to use my email address, an old email address that I don't use very much right now. And then I'm going to go ahead and upload a signature. And this is something that we can create for you. And if you haven't created this or provided this graphic to Tressa just yet, please, please provide that for us. Hold on, signs, seals. Let me just go ahead and upload a phony signature for the time being. Okay, so you'll need to provide that graphic to Tressa. Now, if you have like an old ordinance or a resolution that has that on it that you've already provided us, that we could use one of those. We just need to know if those are current. Have you changed your mayor or your clerk recently by chance?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
Now, I don't know if Tressa's still on, but Tressa, if you know whether or not you have the signatures, please let us know. Okay, so we probably have those already. We can probably create those for you. So we'll make sure that we get that done today and we upload them for you in this space. So we also want to create an additional approver who would not be just your mayor, but would be your clerk. So I'm gonna hit this little plus icon here. Now, out of curiosity, Kale, are you doing approved as to form signatures on your ordinances?
I have not been.
You have not been, okay. You can, but I don't necessarily recommend it. These are the people who actually approve it via email. And then I'll show you one that doesn't here in a moment. But we're going to go ahead and say the attester. And remind me the clerk's name. Is it Steve, right?
Yep.
And Steve, what's your last name again?
Ross,
Steve?
B-R-A-T-Z.
A-A-T-Z?
Correct.
Oh, cool. Okay, now city recorder, city clerk. Like that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And we're going to go ahead and, you know what? Let's go ahead and put in your email address, Steve. What is your email address?
Sprotz at West Allis, W-I. Nope, no dot. Just westalliswi.gov.
Got it. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and upload a phony signature for you today. Of course, we'll change that. And then we're going to upload a phony seal for West Allis today. And of course, that will be done as well. Now, do you have a seal, just out of curiosity, for your resolutions and ordinances that you apply?
Yes, I don't think we've been using it, but we should.
Okay. If you can take a picture of that and send it to me via email,
I have
that would.
Yeah.
If you have a scanned document of that too, that'd be fine. We'll just Photoshop it for you and get it ready for you. All we're doing is we're making it be a certain size. We're making it be a transparent background, so it's not a solid white opaque background.
Right.
I'm going to go ahead and say save. And now once those are loaded in, whatever book you go to, those representatives will apply. Okay, so if any one of you changes any one of these legislators or presiding officers or anything, it's going to apply book-wide. So, or site-wide, I should say, not book-wide, site-wide. So be aware of that. I'm going to go ahead and say save, and then I'm going to move on to step 2. So really all this is preloading of information so that we can digitally and electronically sign documents. Step 2, I'm going to create my document. This is not an ordinance, this is a resolution. So we're going to go ahead and say resolution. And this is number 2020-0136. And again, it sounds to me like you're going to use Legistar for this numbering sort of approach first. And then you're going to apply that numbering to this software. So that's important to remember. And then we have our short title. We're going to say the bubblegum resolution. And then we can have a longer title if we want. And feel free to be crazy if you want to do a massive long title. And you'll notice that I'm doing uppercase and lowercase on purpose to kind of give you an example of what this is going to look like when we're done. And then the recitals, I'm not going to worry about, because in this particular example, if you recall, I put the whereas language right into the editor. Okay, I'm just going to bypass that. And then I'm going to have my ordaining clause. This basically states that we have the power to, in fact, create resolutions because we are the council. Okay. And then you can refine this if you don't like how this is written. Let's say Kale's like, you know, I really hate how Municode has this particular verbiage. Please make it be this. Then you can do that, but you just have to do that every single time. Now, if you want, Kale, if you really dislike this and you don't want to have people do this every time, please send us the language that you like unique to your city. Otherwise, you can hit use default and it reverts back to the default text.
Do you have a chance to have different ordaining clauses for resolutions and ordinances?
We've never seen it, but yeah, if you wanted to have it different, you could.
Yeah, it would have to be different. There's a state law about how the ordinances are worded,
Okay.
and the resolutions are slightly different, but we would
Great.
have,
So,
it would be consistent though between those two categories.
yeah, so you might want to, for the time being, you might want to provide that text to the powers that be that are going to be creating these resolutions so they can place it in. Let's say it's something like this. Now therefore be it ordained by the council in the state of Wisconsin, and it's said in the law, blah, blah, blah. Okay, they would have to load that in every single time. Now, if you have exclusive text you want to provide me and we can implement it in, and it'll probably show up in the next couple of months, we could definitely do that for you. So just shoot me an email, Kel, and we'll make sure that that is unique. You know, it actually makes me think here. The document, that's going to be tricky, Kale. What you should probably do is use the resolution, because no, we cannot make it distinct for per publication presently. We cannot do that. That is actually a new issue that I've never thought of. So provide us the resolution copy, and then when you do ordinances, Kale, you'll have to change that accordingly to what the ordinance copy should be, because you're going to be using this less than the other people. So I would recommend you give us the default resolution ordaining clause. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So here's what here's literally what it says.
Okay.
In the statutes. I'm typing it in right now.
I want you all to know that you have a great attorney. We never get this kind of collaboration and feedback, so this is fabulous to hear.
I've taken the code project on as somewhat of a thing, so that's why I'm very interested in this. And
good.
But yeah, if you see in the chat there, what I put is the actual language that you pull from the statute. This is how ordinances have to be passed with this preface.
Okay.
So Kimball, you're basically building in the basics. So like every resolution or ordinance is going to have this verbiage.
Correct.
What about so when you're actually creating the ordinance, you can add more ordaining clauses. Like we'll have be it further resolved. There's always sometimes extra ordinance clauses.
Oh yeah, you could keep on going.
And would you build that into here then?
You could, yes, or you could have additional clauses down here, which I'll show you here in a moment.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So do you have that text for me?
Yeah, I put it in the chat.
Oh, you did? Okay, sorry. Let's see here. The Common Council. Oh, yes. We had that issue come up a little bit ago. Tressa probably remembers that. We're actually changing our software to allow for Common Council to be placed in too, because we had the Common Council of the City of West Allis do ordain as follows. Can I say in the state of Wisconsin and then do ordain?
You can say West Allis, Wisconsin. West Allis, comma, Wisconsin, comma, do ordain as follows. That's fine.
Gail, do you have to have the county in there too?
Technically, you don't even have to either. You can just say City of West Allis.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I mean, the language is from the state code, so there can be no other City of West Allis. But you can have multiple villages or multiple towns around the state, so it might matter the counties for if your municipality is a town.
Yeah, I think there's 7 Franklins and like 8 Caledonias or something in the state.
Towns, yeah.
Towns, villages, between the towns, villages, and cities.
Yes, yeah, but there are multiple towns of like Vernon in different counties. Yep. But at least there's only one village of Caledonia and only one city of Caledonia.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll try to implement that in for you. Our software development team is working on a tool that allows you to customize this. kind of on the book level. And that's actually something we're working on. In fact, now I'm going to go back to what I said. We are implementing that on the book level. So yes, this should be custom per book, because we're going to put it in that in a particular place that does affect book wide. So this is good. This is good information. So in the time being, Kale, just know that your team is gonna have to refine this to match exactly what you've said here. Okay. It's not going to override like the representatives did. You're gonna have to customize this every single time. So make sure that it says, by the Common Council of the City of West Allis, Wisconsin, do ordain as follows. So I'm gonna go ahead and proceed with that, and then we're gonna have our adoption of our ordinance, which is whereas bubblegum is sticky, whereas blah, 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 blah. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and leave that there, and then we're going to do our clauses. Now, generally speaking, repealer clause, severability clause really don't apply on resolutions. I'll leave that up to Kale to decide whether or not you want this boilerplate text. This is pretty common text we see on ordinances, but again, not so much on resolutions. And this should say resolution if you're going to use it, not ordinance. But we're going to go ahead and just bypass these because resolutions usually don't use clauses anyway. But let's bring up, I think that was Steve that you said you were nervous about additional clauses. I'm going to go ahead and add another clause. Okay, you can say some other clause name. Now I'm purposely doing kind of lowercase and uppercase because I want you to see what it's going to do when we actually generate the document.
What does
Okay.
your effective date say, or how does that worded?
Yeah, let's go ahead and click that so you see. Right now it says this ordinance shall be in full force and effect from blank and after the required approval and publication according to law. Now what we see a lot of municipalities doing is they say, okay, let's suppose they're using this for their code. They'll say shall be in full force and effect immediately.
We would just say upon public approval and publication.
After the required approval and publication according to law. So you would, again, define how you want that every single time.
Okay.
The reason why we have the effective date in here is if you want to speed the passage of something up, then you would select this. If you want to kick it out to a later date, then you would select it. Otherwise, don't select it at all and let the state statute define when that becomes effective anyway. So it's up to you. I usually suggest people to only select that when they have any reason to speed it up or any reason to kick it out later. Okay. We'll go ahead and leave that just so you can see how that will look. And I'm going to turn off the make as section here. What that means is we have section 1 and section 2, but no section 3 on this custom clause. And you'll see how that looks here in a moment. And then we have our show prior content, show red lines in color, grayscale, or full resolution or changes only. And we're going to go ahead and download our document. These are just various settings as to how that resolution will ultimately appear. So what this system is doing is this is allowing you to not only load in your resolutions to make them keyword searchable and publish them how you would like, but it's also creating the resolution document for you. And we're going to have me as the pretend mayor sign this document. And then Steve is going to attest this document, and then it's going to be automatically published, and your work is done. So what we're doing is we're preemptively loading the resolution here into the system. Okay, so here's our resolution. Let's kind of break this down. We have the title of the city, title of the resolution. We have the short title and long title. Okay, you'll notice that this is forcing everything to be all uppercase. You can define how you want your stuff in bold to be. So whether you want it to be now, therefore, or what did you say? There's an additional, someone said that they want to do an additional clause that said. And,
So our ordinances start with that ordaining clause. Our resolutions do not.
Oh, okay.
So our resolutions just jump right into the whereases. Right
Got it. So you can actually bypass. So I'm going to show you one other different way to do this. This is kind of an odd way, but I did want to show you. And the reason why I'm showing you this way is because I want you to see that the whereas text can be searchable when you do it this way, but it cannot be searchable the other way. So so we have a now therefore. So if you don't want that now therefore, you can actually click that little box and you can pull it out of being in there. So you can say ordaining clause. Let's just go ahead and hide that. Okay. And then we're going to generate the ordinance anew. This time we're going to do it in grayscale, and let's not do before and after. And let's just go ahead and download the document. So again, a different way to generate this ordinance. And this is taking a little bit of time. What this is doing is this is actually generating the document in a different server. So it does bypass our traditional server where everybody's searching. And so that's why sometimes it takes a little bit of time. You might have to wait like 30 or 40 seconds sometimes. Sometimes you do some of the most minor changes and it just takes a little longer than you would expect it to take. Interesting. There we go. Download. Okay. Now note here that the ordinance number is exactly what you've defined it in the document creator. And if you do it again, it's going to probably put a parentheses around it, like a parentheses 1 in this example. Okay. Now we've bypassed the ordaining clause. We've unchecked that. We've just said we're adopting this resolution. This has been added. Whereas, effective date, some other clause name. You'll notice this does not say section 3 because we told it not to be as a section. Okay. And then we have passed and adopted by the City of West Allis Council. Of course, that needs to change when we're going to actually implement. It probably has to say the Common Council of the City of West Allis. Is that correct?
So for a resolution, it's not nearly as specific. It's just
Okay.
the ordinance ordaining clause is what's specific.
All right. And then we have the votes, and then we have the signatures and the attester, and then the page numbers. Okay, so this is a very basic resolution. But what we've done is we've built it out of our software so that when it gets signed, it gets automatically loaded into the software upon passage, upon electronic signature. So I'm going to go ahead and pretend that this particular bubblegum resolution has been passed. And I'm going to go to number 3, pass. And let's suppose that this passed just yesterday, April 14th. And just so you know, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. I want you to know that I'm following these steps, okay? I've added a new proposal. I've proposed text by hitting edit. I've fixed the language formatting wherever I felt like needed to be fixed. And now I'm creating the proposed document. I've gone through these steps, representatives, and now I'm on the 3rd step, which is pass, okay? And I'm almost done with this entire process. Let's say that everybody said yes, except for Council Member C. He said nay. And I'm going to go next. And do we want to apply the history upon passage, i.e. the foundational document, the signed substantiating document? Yes, we do. You can say no, but I don't recommend it. Let's suppose that your mayor says, you know what, I don't like this electronic signature program. It's just making me scared that someone's going to take advantage of it and pass documents for me. Can you please just bypass it and make me sign everything? Now, of course, that sounds kind of odd in this COVID era that we're dealing with. You do want to electronically sign things, but just in case they did want to go that path, you can say no. And it sounded to me like you're very pro not paper. So you would probably use this every single time, but just know that you can do this route if you want, which would require the scanning of the document, saving it as a PDF, uploading it here, and then hitting pass. Okay, but I'm going to go ahead and say yes, digitally sign and seal. And let's go ahead and send this to Kale. Can I send this to you just as an additional document recipient?
Sure.
Can you give me your email address real quick?
Just kdecker@westallis.wi.gov.
Okay. Notice that we can have additional document recipients as well. It's not exclusive to Kale. You can send this to, let's suppose it's a policies and procedures document. Okay, you can send this to the entire staff if you have a staff-wide email. All right, so that's nice because then all the staff can know the moment a document is signed when the policies have changed. So we've seen this used for all kinds of things. We've seen newspaper reporters being included here as well and notified so that they can post summaries or the actual ordinance into the newspapers and so on and so forth. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and say send and download unapproved document. And it says, congratulations, the document has been sent to your presiding officer, which in this case, I think it was a phony dude. happens to be me. And I'm going to go ahead and pull open my email so you see what the mayor is going to be receiving. So come in here momentarily. There we go. Approval needed. And it says the attached document was passed on April 14th and awaits your signature. Click here to apply your signature and update your online publication. Note that the mayor is not having to learn the software. All the mayor has to know is that they're going to be signing things electronically from this point forward. They're going to receive emails, and they need to click here to apply their signature if they approve of those ordinances or resolutions. So they're going to go ahead and click on this attachment and may want to double check it, see if that was indeed what they discussed. You'll notice the difference between the document that we generated in your packet, or for your packet. Before, it didn't have a date, it just had like an underline, and it didn't have tick marks for the vote. Now it does, because the software we hit the pass step and we inserted that information for it. Okay, there's no signatures either, of course, because this presiding officer has to apply their signature. And so they're going to go ahead and click here. And then it's going to be sent now to Steve, who is the clerk. And Steve, if you want to go ahead and check your inbox, and if you happen to have your inbox in front of you, do you, Steve? Do you have access to your email?
I do.
Great. Tell me if anything comes in. And if it doesn't, you might want to look at your spam or your trash. And this is an important issue. When people use the software initially, they don't realize that sometimes the emails get sent to the trash because of people's settings on their email. It did get sent to your trash. Good. And that's good for you to know that, because you'll need to help your mayor understand to check their trash or spam.
All right.
And once you pull it out and put it into your inbox, then it should allow for it in the future to come right into your inbox. So go ahead and approve of that.
Hang on one second. My VPN keeps bogging out every so often.
So just so you're aware of what he's seeing something like this: approval needed. Well, no, he's seeing authority approved is what he's seeing. Okay, and it looks like this. It says it was approved by the presiding officer. Click here to attest. Okay, what he's seeing is a document that is now signed and sealed. Okay, so that's the difference between what the mayor sees and what he sees as the clerk. So I'm going to go ahead and you'll notice now that it says document approved. So both the mayor and the clerk receive a final document approved notification. And also, because we added Kale as an additional document recipient, Kale, if you check your inbox, you'll also see a document approved. And it looks probably like this.
So do you want me to click here and go through that, or is it already done?
It's already done. Did you click? Yeah, I think you clicked the click here already, because it went to document approved.
I was trying to get it out of the junk.
Oh, well, it looks like it was already approved. You're telling me you did not hit the click here button?
I did not.
That's odd. I think I would probably swear that you did accidentally, because it wouldn't have sent to us otherwise.
Well, now I click it and I get a server error, so I assume that because
okay,
it's
now
already
that
done.
you click it, because you did click it the first time. The server error pops up only if you've already clicked it. It doesn't. Yeah, we need to put a little thing that says, "Sorry, you've already clicked it. Thank you very much." Okay, so it's already been selected. So now I'm going to jump back into the resolutions book, and let's take a look at it now.
So can I do a rule to send the document approved to other email addresses in addition to us two?
Yes, absolutely. So you guys should just create that standard now. And remember that when you're in the proposal, we're now into Beth's resolution, and we hit the pass option. Hold on, I've got to change this ordinance thing.
So you should add Ann Neff, Emery Neff, and Janelle Lemansky to that particular email, because then they'll take it and save that into the legislative file in Legistar.
Yeah. Let me just show you where yeah, so when you're here, you guys need to create your own additional document recipients. Okay, so you just kind of create as many as you want. And then all the people that need to have record of that document will be receiving that upon your, Steve, upon your attestation. Okay. Good
Okay.
question. All right, so now notice that this particular, yeah, go ahead.
So you'd say that right now our process is I sign and then we give it to the mayor for him to sign. Technically, I think it's backwards, but does it really matter what order, or is it only
No,
when I hit?
It's a good question. Presiding officer will always go first, actually, in our system. Even though you put, like if I go into the representatives and I put, the attester first, if I trash this one, and I put the attester first, we have made the software force the presiding officer first, because if you think about it, Steve, you're attesting the mayor's signature.
Right, which is why I think it's been backward.
Oh yeah, you have been doing it backwards. You're saying internally you've been doing it backwards.
Internally, right.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So that's why we do presiding officer first. Okay, now let's move on to the other way to do a resolution real quick, and we're about done, by the way. I'm just going to show you one last way.
Yeah, Kimball, I hope you're going to get to what happens if the mayor vetoes something, or
yeah, if the mayor chooses not to click here, they just say it doesn't come to you at all. They have the option to click here or not. And if they don't click here within, I think 48 or I think it's 3 or 4 days, then it literally just stays here in propose mode. It never affects the live code. Okay.
So how would we know if he's doing it on purpose or if he just forgot?
There is presently, that's a really good question. There's presently, because this software is relatively new, there's presently no way to track that except for you to be notified, Steve, when he or she has actually signed that document. Okay.
Yeah, I wonder if there's something that can be built into like veto.
Yes.
Like he gets 2 options, one to approve and one to veto.
Yeah, what you'll see in the future, and this is just so you're aware of kind of where we're going with our development, this will probably be grayed out the moment you've sent it off. The proposal will not be able to be edited once you've sent it. Does that make sense? And then it'll probably tell you, like it'll say like checkbox as to who's, like how much time they have left. You know what I mean? So you kind of understand where the process is with each proposal. That makes sense? So that's something we're working on, but for the time being, that's a really good question. There is no way to track where they're at in the process, but know that you do have a limited amount of time before they can approve of documents. And I think it's 3 days. I think it's 72 hours or something like that.
Kale, are you there?
Yes.
Any thoughts on maybe just building part of the procedure if the mayor doesn't want to sign or wants to veto something? He just sends an individual email stating that for the time being.
Yeah, by statute they just he has to file the veto with you.
Okay.
Okay.
So he does have to make me aware.
Yeah. So let's see.
Not that we ever have. I haven't
So
had.
what you're telling me then is that the veto is actually an additional document?
Yeah. So it says all such acts shall be submitted to the mayor by the clerk and shall be enforced upon approval evidenced by the mayor's signature, or upon failing to approve or disapprove within 5 days. So that's what we get. We get 5 days.
Yep. You get 5 days. Okay, that's important.
If he doesn't approve within 5 days,
it is vetoed.
No. So it's either approved upon his signature or upon failing to approve or disapprove within 5 days. So it's a pocket approval, not a pocket veto. He has to affirmatively veto within 5 days, or it's approved.
Got it. So if he has to veto, then he has to notify you guys so you can create that document, right?
Yep. Yes.
Okay.
The fact shall be certified to the clerk. Objections filed with the clerk.
So really, when now if we're going to apply this software to this equation, you have to make sure that he approves, period, because otherwise, this software is not forced to approve in 5 days. Just be aware of that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm going to work with IT to help him set up a rule in his inbox that any email addresses coming from this will go to a specific folder, so these won't be mixed in with all of his other emails.
I'm going to take note of a feature that I just thought of. Would be great for this municipality to tell us how many days before a document becomes live or becomes approved automatically. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, and just as a heads up, the 5 days is going to be 5 business days.
Oh, really? Okay.
So that might really complicate your formula.
Software. Okay. Whether or not it's a holiday. Okay, interesting. All right, well, that's important to know. Let me see. Someone looks like someone just chatted something real quick. To certify, how do we certify resolutions? You want to expand?
Yeah, I don't know if
Steve?
Janelle's able to jump in to clarify what she means by that.
Yeah, Janelle.
*6 if you're on your phone.
Sorry, I had a hard time unmuting.
Okay.
Every once in a while, we have to certify a resolution for, I don't know, I forget why, and we do it currently. Now we currently do it under a separate Word document that just says we certified this resolution is true and correct.
So like bond resolutions?
Like bond resolutions, I can't get to my L drive because I had to log off of the city website, but.
So
Don't we sometimes certify for TIFs for like the Joint Review Board, or I know
It's
I've
all the
said,
bonds. You're doing the bond resolutions. Anytime we borrow money, we have to do a certification for that.
Let me
So
talk
Gail
about
might
it.
know what's
There is a feature that's we call the COP, the Certificate of Publication and Posting, that we can, it's like a 2-for-1 document that you can create with this. It's a certification. And I'll show you that here in a moment in the next one, the next example that you might want to consider using. I would not say that it's the definitive solution, but it's a possibility you could use it. So I'm going to jump into that. Let's do the next option, a different way to do the whereas statements, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and use Beth's resolution regarding stormwater, and we're going to say propose add below. We're going to call this one R-2020-0136 or 37 rather. And we're going to say, now this part, we're not going to include the whereas statements. We're just going to say, be it ordained, hereby be it ordained as follows. Now therefore be it ordained as follows. We're going to say that stormwater may not be collected by any resident throughout West Allis. I hope you never have a law like that, but you might, okay? And we're gonna go ahead and resolve that. And we're also, something that's important about collective publications is we will never amend anything in your resolutions book in a chronological book. Why would we never amend anything in a chronological book? Why would I never go back to here and amend stuff in propose mode? Any ideas? Now, I would in a code. I would definitely amend stuff in a code. If this was like, section 35, I would definitely go in and amend stuff here. But in a resolution, if I'm going to go ahead and pass a resolution and then also amend an old resolution, that's kind of odd, okay? The old resolution is a historical document, you leave it alone. So resolutions in the case of propose mode, you're always just going to adopt new resolutions. So just be aware of that. So let me just show you a quick example of the ability that I would be able to actually amend stuff. Let's say may own. Okay. This is actually something more so for Kale than it is for the rest of you. But because you're dealing with policies, I think that you need to understand this, because policies are in fact managed the same way that that the code is. So that's kind of an important element. So I'm going to go ahead and say that, yeah, that's what I want to amend. Now, if I want to see what this would look like if it were indeed passed, I can hide and show my amendments. This is on and off of the red line view. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and say update. And now I'm going to go into my, let's say that I'm done, and I'm going to move into my documents creation. Here's my legislators. These are all still the same. I'm going to say save. I'm going to move on to my creation of my document. We have our resolution number. We're going to call this ordinance resolution R-2020-0137. And then we're going to say short title, storm resolution. And then we're going to put in our whereas recitals here. Now, you remember the last time I bypassed the recitals because I wanted the recitals to be keyword searchable in the language. But this time, if I put in the recitals into the document, it's going to show up in the document, but it's not going to show up as keyword searchable text within the language area. So I'm going to go ahead and say stormwater must be used to fill the city pond. Whereas blah, blah, blah. Okay, whatever whereas statements you want. Of course, you'll have to change this to say the Common Council. And then, of course, City of West Allis, Wisconsin as follows. And then you'll have your adoption and your amendment. Now, remember, we don't like to amend resolutions, past resolutions. So where is that text change? It's not showing. There it is, right there. Okay, there's my little text change. So I'm going to go ahead and trash that, and watch what happens when I trash this amendment. That little gray pencil is going to disappear. Okay, and now I only have my adoption. Okay, and then our various clauses, we're going to go ahead and throw in an effective date, and we're going to add a custom one, and this time we're going to make this one be a section as well. And then we have our settings. We're going to show prior content, color, and then we're going to do full resolution, download the document. Okay, now this time we have a resolution with whereas statements that we put in with the document creator instead of putting the whereas statements right into the language area. And so let's see what this one looks like. This will probably, you might like the appearance of this document a little better than the last one by how it's structured. Okay, so we have resolution, the whereas, the now therefore, and then this section one that we're adopting. It's hereby added as follows. Before it was not existing, now it's existing. Okay, and then the effective date, custom clause name. Okay, and you'll notice that we have 3 sections. Okay, and let me just show you a few other ways to toggle this, the creation or the view of this ordinance. We're going to do changes only, and we're going to do no red lines, a clean version, and we're going to do no prior content. Download this one again. This is a very simple document. This is a draft, as you can see, because I said changes only. Okay, and it just shows what we want to adopt as a resolution. So this might be like if you do a first reading or a second reading. Do you guys do that at all in West Allis? Do you have like a first reading and a second reading and then a pass?
Additionally, no.
No? Okay. So let's say you just want to throw up something up for discussion. This would be a draft. You would create a draft. What it's doing is it's removing all of the ceremonial language that you would be required to have by state statute. And you're just getting right to the particular adoption of the resolution that you want to add. Okay, so that's what you would do in this case. This is grayscale, this is clean. There's no red lines or anything. It's not green and underlined saying that it's new, it's just clean. Okay, so you can toggle these settings really in very many ways, however you want. There's like, I think we did the math on this at some point. It was like, I don't know, well over 20 or 30 different options you can have. Okay, so just be aware of those settings. All right, let's go ahead and say we're going to do this in color, and we're going to do a full resolution. Looks good, and we're going to go ahead and do the pass step. Again, we can have additional recipients, and I'm going to answer the question that you had about the certification. In fact, I don't think we have the certification in the resolutions book. We don't even have it in the resolutions book. That's kind of a downer. Let me see. It's interesting it's not showing up. Maybe we turn that off in the resolutions book. That's odd. I'm going to go ahead and just say send and download an approved document. And I'm going to go ahead and approve of this. So Steve, you can pass that again or attest to that as soon as this comes in. I want to show you that certificate real quick. Let me jump back to your code, and I think we'll see it there.
I haven't gotten an email yet.
You haven't yet? Okay, it'll come. Just hit
I checked my
refresh.
junk.
It'll come. Sometimes it takes like a minute.
There it is.
Okay, and
So I
then
click here.
yeah, that here part. Yep.
I get a server error in application.
You did
Yeah.
the first time you clicked it.
No, well, I just clicked it in this new email.
In the new email, it did.
Takes me to a page that says server error.
Huh. Let me
So
check here.
I was a little confused by it too, because the first and only email I got was after it was already approved.
Right. That's the way that it should be.
But I got that almost simultaneous to when you sent it, before there
Oh,
appeared to be
really?
features.
Interesting.
That's what it seemed like, at least. I don't know.
Okay, let me let's look at what your code says right now.
Yeah, and now I just got another one that says document approved, and I haven't done anything.
You didn't click the here at all, and it just already signed it for you.
I did click the here,
And it gave you that alert.
It takes me to a page that says server error.
Okay.
Server error in.
Yeah,
application.
it's working. It's just, I don't know why that server error popped up. I'll have our dev team look at that and see why it's happening like that. Can you,
It says token is expired and may not be used.
can you give me, does it give you like a code number for a server error?
Want me to just forward the email to you?
Yeah, do that. Yeah, then I'll click it and it'll probably give me the same error. That's a good idea. Okay, so what you've seen is once he clicked here, even though it gave him a server error on his end, it did in fact pass it, push it through. I want you to see what's the difference between these two resolutions is that we have the whereas, which is searchable here, but we don't have the whereas, which is not searchable here. So most cities, when they say, I want a resolutions book using the software, they say we want the whereas language to be searchable. Not searchable like you've got it here. But the reality is the whereas statements are findable, at least by virtue of the document, and you click on that and then you can see the whereas statements. Okay, so you're going to have to decide which approach you want to do. Just know that this approach does look a little bit funky, where it just jumps right into the sections and it shows the adoptions with the whereas within it. Okay, so I don't know if you want to make an executive decision right now, Kale, on that.
Whereas this should be first, don't need to be searchable. I would enter the whereas.
They don't need to be searchable. Okay, yeah. So this would be your approach, and I agree with Kale. A lot of cities disagree with this, but I say what a resolution is the actual what element that you want to resolve. It's not the whereas statement. The whereas statement is important for a resolution and arguably more important than an ordinance, but it's just not law. It's just the reasons why you're resolving to do something.
If it's that important, it should be in the resolution, not in the whereas.
Correct. So yes, very good point. So just remember to do it this way, the way that I showed you, where you'd actually create the recitals in the document creator instead of creating the recitals within the language area. Okay. All right. So real quick, while we're almost done, we got about a minute left before I think I'm going to hang up here. So note that every single time you're proposing a document and passing it through this electronic process, it is showing up here in the gavel. Okay. So these 2 or 3 resolutions that we built today are already showing up here. Okay, we've got 135, 136, and 137. You can organize these however you want. You have the actual document showing up.
They're
So
all
whether it's,
visible by the public, right?
yep, it's all visible to the public. So what we essentially did in this propose mode is, remember how we did all these manual steps in live? We erased having to do that at all by just proposing it to begin with and then hitting pass, and then it's automatically publishing it in this live method, this live approach. Okay. So propose mode is by far more efficient than live mode, because if you use live mode all the time, then you're going to be using Word to create your resolution to begin with. You're going to be physically signing, scanning, and then re-inputting that text yet again. Okay, whereas this, you're inputting the text to begin with our text editor instead of Word, passing it electronically, and it immediately goes live. Okay, so do we all understand the reason why propose mode is clearly more efficient than live mode?
Yep.
Okay. Now, it's not to say that propose mode doesn't come with some learning and some learning curve. It is. It does. It's a new text editor. It's not Word. It's a little bit different, and there's additional steps that I just showed you today. Now, Tressa has been recording all of this, so this is going to be a rather long recording, but please refer back to this recording in times to come when there's staff turnover or a new employee that needs to be a user of the software. Please refer back to that specific training, because it is specific to West Allis. And the best part is that Kale has been on the phone call and has been clearly defining to you some standards for the creation of your books. One last thing that I did not discuss is the need to make sure that each book has a preface on outset. So you'll notice that your municipal code does have a preface up at the top, and it defines certain standards. Those standards need to be defined in every publication. So every publication should in fact have a preface up at the top. You'll notice your resolutions does not. Some of those elements that need to be defined are things such as acronyms, how the alphanumeric numbering should be, how the book is structured, if it's chronological or coded, and if it is coded, then this is the different names that we're using for each level. And maybe some additional information like state reference statutes, or if you're going to do an internal reference, how you define it, or that the governing document really truthfully is the ordinance or the resolution, not so much the online code. That what that does is that helps you understand, all of you that are users, that at the end of the day, the person that's held responsible for mistakes are the council, and not so much you yourselves. All you're doing is the messenger. You're bringing that text into the online code. And it also implies that if you do mess up in the online code, then really the ordinance typically governs. Okay? So at the end of the day, your ordinances and your resolutions need to be with the governing documents, not so much the online code in and of itself. For example, this language is, yes, it should mirror exactly what's in the ordinance that's down beneath it, which you don't have in this particular example. So it should mirror exactly these ordinances. But if it doesn't, then really this is the governing document. Okay? So those are some elements you need to consider in your preface. And the preface should literally be across every book, no matter what it is, no matter how minuscule it might be in its strength. Okay, they should all have a preface. And just like a normal physical book has a kind of like an introduction sheet or a page that talks about the book. All right, that's a long training. I know your brains are full, everybody, but do we have any questions before we part today?
So Kimball,
Yes.
going forward, I mean, my original intention was to get this going by April 1st and drop general code. But before that happened, a pandemic hit and a crisis was caused. So I didn't get to that. So I guess we're going to go with May 1 to officially switch over, or maybe even earlier. But as far as the resolutions go, I'm almost thinking, I was originally thinking that we could start recreating all the resolutions that we did in 2020 and get started. But then I looked in our Legistar and we're already up to 196 resolutions. I don't know if that's going to be feasible at this point. So I'm thinking any resolutions we do for the next meeting, which is next week, which is our first April meeting, maybe just start mirroring those to get some practice on the resolutions, because I'm sure we'll have a bunch of them.
Mhm.
Any thoughts between you or Kale, maybe?
I'm fine
Um,
using this program to start creating resolutions in the future. I agree that it's going to be a long-term thing to go backwards. I don't know if now is the right time, but
Right.
Yeah, I would just start. Just start now, in my opinion. Start creating them from this book. It's going to make everything easier in my mind instead of trying to do everything slowly. I would just jump in right now, and all the stuff in the past you could consider using Municode or MuniDocs, or you could start loading them in, or have us load them in here. One step would be this: you could start loading them into the Gavel, just the document itself. So for example, if I had something from March, let's say it's 2020 dash 0133, okay. What's R dash, sorry, R dash 2020 dash. And let's go ahead and say this was passed March 4th. This was a resolution. And I'm just going to upload something phony right now. Sure, that sounds good. Update. Okay, so what you're doing is you're at least loading the document into the system to treat it like a cache. The only problem is this text from this document is not searchable. So if you want to make it searchable, then you'd eventually, when you get to it, you could copy and paste the text from this document into another, what we call a node, remember? And then you can make that searchable. But for the time being, you could just start loading at least the documents themselves into this document library. And then the areas that have references are the areas that actually have searchable text. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's something you could do for now. Or you could use that MuniDocs solution and you could say, okay, we're going to start 2020 on, we're going to use the resolutions, and anything prior to 2020, you could even create a link that says prior to 2020, click here, and it takes you to MuniDocs. That might be a smart idea. So you could say, add below resolutions prior to, well, resolutions 2019 and earlier. And then you just have a link that says, visit our MuniDocs page to search these resolutions. And then you could just dump everything on there and then make it searchable. And you could create a hyperlink right here.
Yeah, I'm just thinking for the immediate future, because we have a council meeting next week and there's already stuff in Legistar. So I'm just wondering if maybe between now and sometime next week, just to get some practice, or all the resolutions that we created for this upcoming council meeting, we can just redo in Municode just to get the practice in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, just as a practice. Yeah, for sure.
You do need to make sure that you figure out if the emails that I got were correct, or if there's something that has to happen to get, because I was getting that error message with the email.
Yeah, I'll double check on that. I made a little note to talk to our dev team about that. When you forward that to me, I'll just forward it off to them and say, why did he get the error when he didn't even, this is the first time he clicked it.
Already.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll double check. I'll get back to you on that. Or have Brett may contact you. He's our support guy.
All right.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none.
Oh, I did have one question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So when you're creating the resolution, ultimately in the proposed mode, it creates a PDF, which we take and will attach into Legistar, and that's
correct.
What the council members do.
That is correct. Yep.
What about if there's backup documents? Maybe I missed this part, but if there's additional documents. You can add it here. The PDF then that's created, is that going to be all of those documents? Or do we have to attach those separately?
Okay, good question. You're talking about like exhibits, right?
Yeah.
Yes, you would have to attach them separately. Now, let me just talk about that briefly. Clauses, what I would do in that case is I would add a clause and I would call this exhibit, okay? Good question, though. This is a really good question. Exhibit A is hereby adopted as attached. Okay, whatever you want to call that, okay? That becomes a section, just like sections 1, 2, and 3, okay? Might be in your actual proposed changes. Now, I didn't do any proposed changes here, so that becomes an exhibit. Now, you are forced, when you download this document, to attach those, stitch those together in Acrobat, okay? And once you stitch those together in Acrobat, don't assume that you have the ability to electronically pass that, because they're not. You now pulled it out of the program. So you have to pass that one physically. Does that make sense? Because you got to scan those in. Now we did implement something in our system. This is a really good question. We did implement something in our system that allows you to actually affix, and I'll show you what's going to happen here so you can see what happens. Affix a link. Let's say that this is an exhibit, okay? Go ahead and say link. And then we're going to go ahead and link an actual document. Okay, so what I've done is I've proposed language, but I've proposed also the addition of a document to become an exhibit. Now I'm going to go to the document creator, and you'll notice that I have an exhibit that pops up. Okay, now the problem with this is it's not fully functioning right now. So what I'm telling you is that you're going to have to, what we wanted to do basically is to affix that PDF to the document when you generate the document. We just don't have that implemented just yet. So when you propose new language, I'm going to discourage you from loading documents as links, because it's not going to affix. It gives you this false impression that you're going to affix the PDF to that resolutions or ordinance document. But I did want you to know that where we're going with this ultimately. But in the interim, for the time being, if you want to add an exhibit, I would recommend you just do a custom clause, say Exhibit A, and then you affix it yourself. You scan that in once it's signed, and you bypass in a physical manner instead of an electronic manner when you hit pass here. Does that make sense? Or no? How about this? The next time you have an exhibit, call me and I'll walk you through the process. Sound good?
Good deal.
Okay. The certificate thing, I actually didn't even talk about that. It's actually popping up here. That makes me a little nervous. It didn't pop up the last time. Okay, the certificate. This is that 2-for-1 certificate, by the way. You can change this to say something different, and then it'll give you an additional certificate document. So you can trash this, and you can just say blah, 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 whatever you want, and it will assign the document as well to have the certificate. So this is just the 2-for-1 option, and that will show up on the pass step, usually underneath the document recipients. Okay. All right, I think I've done enough damage for today. When you actually propose your next resolution and you have an exhibit, call me. If you get stuck, if any one of you are concerned, like what is going on with this software or whatever, like we had today with that little error where it was giving you an error when you click here, you just call us, and we like to resolve issues ASAP when we get them in, so that they're not happening to everybody, because if West Allis sees a problem, then every city in the country is seeing the same problem, because this is all based on the same framework. So please call us if you see any issues. Again, if you have any questions in the future, just click help. See if the help menu can help you. If you can't seem to solve it, click this request support button, fill out your information and hit submit. And this will go immediately to Brett, our software customer support guy, and he'll respond back probably within a couple hours, unless it's after 3 p.m. Eastern. And then that'll come to us. All right. Or sorry, 5 p.m. Eastern. Sorry, unless it's after 5 p.m. Eastern, which is 3 p.m. Mountain, my time, so 4 p.m. your time. So if it's after 4 p.m. your time, just know that you may have to wait till the next day because they're out of Florida.
All right.
All right. Well,
Thanks,
thank you,
Kimball.
everybody.
Thanks, Colin. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.